Good evening. This is the Nevada Unified School District School Board meeting for tonight, January 26th. It's at 7 o'clock. We're moving into open session. The first thing we're going to do is a pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States. Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So the next item is items reportable from closed session. Clerk Diana, would you take this item, please?
Sure. So with respect to every item of business to be discussed in closed session pursuant to Government Code 54957, Section 54957.6, conference with labor negotiations, Jonathan Ferrer, Assistant Superintendent, Human Resources, Employees Organization, Nevada Federation of Teachers, or NFT. We provided direction. The board gave direction. With respect to every item of business to be discussed in closed session pursuant to Government Code Section 54957 and 54957.6, conference with labor negotiations, Jonathan Ferrer, Assistant Superintendent, Human Resources, Employees Organization, California School Employees Association, CSEA. The board gave direction. With respect to every item of business to be discussed in closed session pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9, conference with legal counsel, pending litigation, Coalition to Save Samarin versus Nevada Unified School District, Marin County Superior Court case number CIV 1702295. The board provided direction.
Thank you. The next order of business is to approve the order of business we're going to conduct tonight. Item number 7, approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the order of business for this evening?
Mr. President, I'll move approval of tonight's agenda.
I'll
And a
second.
second by Maria Aguilar, and a first by Derek Nell. All in favor? 7. Opposed? None. And I will take advisory votes if there's the student trustees choose to. That's why I see 2 advisory votes. That would be Eva and Elizabeth are voting advisory yes. Thank you very much. So for the student trustees, I will always record your vote when I see it. So I won't ask each time. I think it's just laborious. So I'll look for you, and if, please remind me if I get buried in the paperwork. Public comment on consent agenda is the next item. We are going to consider the consent agenda, which are all the items under item 15. Are there any comments on consent from the public? There are no comments. Does any board member want to pull a consent item for consideration later?
No.
Hearing none, then I'll take a motion to approve the entire consent agenda.
I'll motion. I'll make a motion.
Maria Aguilar, approved, moved, and a second by Julie. So we'll take a vote. All in favor of the consent agenda, 7-0, and 2 advisory votes from our student trustee members. Thank you very much. We're now down to student presentations. Superintendent Koska, do you want to introduce our presenters?
Sure. And so tonight we're lucky to have Novato High School sharing a video with us. Are we going to roll straight into the video, or are we going to have any introductions? Okay. Principal Brewer, pop in, share that camera, and we'll be able to see you.
It won't let me share.
Okay, that's okay. We see your beautiful background.
Oh, there you go. The host. Oh, wait. Start with video. We're rolling now.
There you are.
Good evening.
Thanks for being with us tonight.
Great. Good evening, President Millerick, members of the board, and Superintendent Koska. We wanted to share, for the past 2 years, we've been working on a culture of caring, a culture of excellence, and a culture of competence at Novato High School. So we're going to share with you this evening a student-produced video that shares the student perspective as we work through these improvements. So I hope you enjoy.
Thank you.
three focus areas: culture of caring, culture of competence. Novato High School loves our NUSD three focus areas: culture of caring, culture of competence, and culture of excellence. We align our adult work and priorities to these three areas and appreciate the focus and coherence. Teachers can tell you all about our 1, development of a wellness campus, 2, our proficiency scales and essential learning targets, and 3, our progress on building more robust, multi-tiered systems of support. But how do students experience this work? And how does the pandemic shape student perspective in each area? In this video, we'll amplify student voice and perspectives, and we'll leverage one of Novato High's sweet assets, our Marin School of the Arts, to amplify what it feels like to balance education, community, and a pandemic.
Hello, I'm Andrea Zhang Peterson. I'm a senior in the MSA Musical Theater program, and I serve on the student leadership as the face and voice of our weekly announcements. One of the most consistent elements of our weekly announcements is connected to our wellness campus goals. Amber, our school wellness coordinator, records weekly wellness strategies and tips, like taking care of our social stress and health and nonverbal communication to stay engaged on Zoom. It's hard to believe that we started the wellness practices this year, but we've come to appreciate them every week. Many of our teachers have also started incorporating these strategies into their classroom routines, whether that's making sure we have time to transition into a class setting or offering grounding practices like meditations. When we say we're developing a wellness campus, it's about the various ways teachers, students, administrators, and staff are weaving wellness into all different aspects of our campus. Wellness is extremely important, especially during hard times like these. And as a school, we've worked hard to maintain positive attitudes and weekly wellness to make sure that we are all happy and healthy.
Hi, my name is Alicia Lee, and I'm a freshman here at Novato High. I'm here to talk about the wellness supports that we received from our CCR classes and our health classes. In our health class, we had guest speakers who came to our Zoom classes to talk about various topics such as drug prevention, eating disorders, and sexual health. These wonderful guest speakers shared their experiences with us and were so open to answering all of our questions. In our CCR class, which stands for College and Career Readiness, we had the opportunity to take a personality test called Indigo Survey, which allowed us to know better about our strengths. We also did 2 research projects, one on a future career we may pursue, and another on financial management after college based on where we decide to live. Both CCR and health classes provide us students better life skills and wellness supports that we need. Thank you.
Teachers have been going above and beyond during this virtual learning experience to make us feel comfortable and cared for. Although we all miss the in-class learning experience when we could dependably walk into a welcoming classroom, teachers have been going the extra mile to continue serving as our mentors. As a senior in APR, I still feel connected to the MSA community due to Miss Mancini and all the MSA staff. Thanks to all the staff and Miss Searle, our leadership teacher, we have been able to keep up the wellness at Novato High School.
At Novato High School, Spirit is a foundational piece that helps unite us as a community. Through Link Crew's hard work throughout the summer, we've been able to welcome all of the new freshmen to the High. Additionally, leadership's hard work throughout all of quarantine has helped my senior year feel a little bit more normal. Through all of the fun socially distanced and drive-through events, it's been nice to reconnect with some of my old friends and see what they've been up to.
Hi all, my name is Sean McGinnis and I'm currently a junior and 2022's class president. I'll be talking to you about our tutorial and office hours periods and the good they do for our school. While we've always had office hours in some form, they've really transformed this year to meet the needs of students and staff during these hard academic times. As seen here, they come at the end of our school day and are shorter 30-minute periods of the classes that we didn't have that day. The tutorials are at the teacher's discretion as to how they're used, which allows for them to cater to students' certain needs through additional support or reward students for having their work all caught up with by giving them the period off, which everyone can certainly appreciate. Office hours are just one of the many ways NHS is working to better help students during the pandemic, and we look forward to seeing the benefits of this in the coming months.
Hola, mi nombre es Kevin Mejía. He estado durante 3 años aquí en Novato High School, 3 años también estudiando inglés y soy de Guatemala. El tiempo que he pasado aquí en Navarro High School ha sido muy bueno porque he recibido mucha ayuda con los maestros, mi consejera y mis amigos y compañeros de clase. Pues ha habido casos que yo no puedo a veces traducir cosas y todo, y pues me han ayudado en esos casos. Más en estos tiempos de COVID que a veces hacíamos reuniones después de escuela.
Hello everybody, my name is Zach Lee. I'm a junior at Novato High School, and I'll be talking about the Proficiency Scale in our math department. The Proficiency System is our 4-point grading scale that has been adopted by most of our Novato High School teachers that places all of our students' homework, classwork, and assessments under a 0 to 4 grading range. Each teacher has their own interpretation of the system. Some teachers grade by half points, and other teachers grade traditionally and convert it over to our 4-point grading scale. In our math classes, the Proficiency Scale grades on overall knowledge of a unit, lesson, or key concept. For example, in our AP Calculus classes, 8 units are introduced throughout the year, and the Proficiency Scale, we grade students on their knowledge of each of these lessons, each of these units, and it would give points for work shown, the process of thinking, and equations, rather than just 1 point for one correct answer. In this way, students are graded more on the journey rather than the destination, and I think that the Proficiency Scale offers a more balanced playing field for all of our students. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ash.
And I'm Marguerite.
And today we're going to debate the pros and cons of nuclear power, like you do.
Right now, California has 1 operating plant and several undergoing decommissioning. Our question is, should it, and also why?
Or why not? Because there are some cons. But also we think mostly pros. Anyway. By the way, you should care because this is the future of energy and we're kind of in the middle of an environmental crisis. We need solutions stat. On we go.
Every school district and school seems to have lots of plans, but the most important plan we can make is involving our students and hearing their voice in the process. And at Novato High, we truly put students first.
Novato High is
Inclusive,
Spirited, family,
classy,
Community.
diverse, spirited,
Family.
caring,
supportive,
Excellent.
strong community,
loving,
fun, friendly,
Fun.
community.
We did it!
All right, thanks, Principal Brewer. Anything to add before we let you go for the night and let you go celebrate your birthday?
No, thanks for watching. I hope it was helpful and you got a perspective of how things are going at the school. So thanks for having me join you this evening and good luck with the rest of your meeting.
Are there any comments from our trustees? I'm going to ask Trustee Ava to lead us off in questions or comments. Did we lose him?
No, he's there.
Okay. Ava? Just any?
What?
It's your high school. I figured you might have a question or comments for the team.
Yeah, I don't have any questions right now. We've been trying to give students as many resources as possible. I've really seen, especially the Wellness Center stepping up, and it's really cool how MSA has been doing performances. And yeah, it's been pretty good so far this year with how we've been working really closely with students and teachers.
Thank you very much. Questions from other trustees? Trustee Mack and then Trustee Butler.
I'll just make a quick comment. Really good to see the competency scales in action. I know it's been kind of a bit of a mystery for some of us, including me. I'm really happy to see how it's working and how it's hitting the road. And also really like the schedule having ability for office hours. Kind of sounds like college. I wonder why. Anyway, great stuff. Thank you, Mark. And thank you, Stephanie, for everything you guys did.
Trustee Butler.
Just kind of the same thing, comment that, we constantly are talking about COVID or reentry, but our school, this is a clear example of our schools taking this head on and trying to provide the services to our students. They clearly showed there. They're trying to continue to work through our goals that we have set: culture of caring, culture of competence, our 6 C's. So it's happening, and I know the struggle is real, and especially for our seniors. This is not the year you expected, but we appreciate the work that you've done to try to keep some normalcy with our students and continue to engage with them and provide as much of an education that you can that is valuable.
Other comments, Trustee?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you so much. That was an amazing presentation. I'm always so impressed when I get to see what our high schoolers are doing, all of our kids, but at the high school level, it's such a glimpse into our future, which is so bright. And I really appreciate the way you guys have pivoted and made adjustments as you needed to throughout this to really serve your kids. It's inspirational.
Other comments? Okay, with that, we'll move on to announcements by board, superintendent, and student board members, and we will start with our student board members. So, Elizabeth, you want to go first, and then we'll move to Eva?
Sure thing. Long time no see, everyone. It's good to be back. Let's see. So for our update, Samarin had their back to school night a few days ago, and for the most part, it was very successful. We had a lot of attendance with the parents. And also what I think was very interesting is hearing from my leadership class, because I know that my class has been wanting to take a great emphasis on making sure our seniors are getting the right attention for this unfortunate circumstance. So a few parents got together during back to school night actually and created something called an Adopt a Samarin Senior Program. And so basically what this is they're putting together this program to support our class, and it will require 276 community volunteers or families to help make this a success. So for more information, if you want to be a part of it, visit the program's Facebook page. It's Adopt a SM 2021 Mustang, or the email, which is adoptasm2021mustang@gmail.com. And then also going off of that, I was really excited this week. I feel like we've been able to stay updated on a lot of cool, community efforts. I had the honor to meet with Julie Jacobson a few weeks ago, and I have to tell you guys, it was fantastic, and it really made us student board members interested in seeing if you guys would also be interested in the rest of you actually meeting with us individually. We think we'd like it a lot. So feel free to let us know. I'm always here to talk. Same with Eva, I know. And then we went to Eva and I attended a Police Free Schools Marin meeting on Monday night, and we discussed alternatives for school resource officers in trying to make sure that the population that is feeling underserved in our community is getting the attention they need. So we were looking at alternatives like wellness centers and other solutions. So very productive week, and I'm happy to be back. So thank you for having me.
Eva.
Hi, everybody. So similar to Elizabeth, we had our virtual back to school night. It went really successfully. And this week we have a couple of things getting started. We have a National Lego Day just to try to make things interesting. So students can send in a photo, and it's going to be a competition of their Lego creations. And the winners of that competition will win a $50 Amazon gift, or I believe it's Amazon gift card. Yes, Amazon gift card. And then we're also really trying to support small businesses. So we're working with Marin Coffee Roasters, and on Sunday, the 31st, you can get a free small hot chocolate from Marin Coffee Roasters. And that's what's coming up this week. Also, AVID applications and leadership applications are due this Monday. And this Friday is the last day for students to get their pictures in for the yearbook. In MSA News, we have a virtual town hall tonight, and all of the virtual concerts from first semester are posted on YouTube. So if you guys want to go and take a look at that, They're really, really awesome, and students and teachers both worked really hard. And then February is Black History Month, so we are working with students and staff to speak in the announcements about their family, their experiences, and we're trying to make it really as special as we can. We're also going to be recognizing unsung Black heroes on our Instagram daily, and we are looking at having a guest speaker come in at the end of the month just to close everything out and bring everybody together to celebrate Black History Month. And then I also did go to the meeting with Elizabeth, and it was a really productive meeting and really good meeting. So yeah, that's all I have for today.
Thank you very much. Aguilar, Maria Aguilar?
No, nothing today.
No comment? Trustee Jacobson?
Hi, okay. I've been making the rounds at all the sites, which has been fascinating. You know, they all have great staffs. I was really impressed with Linwood. They're working on some individual learning plans that are a fantastic approach to teaching children. Also got to speak with the team at Hamilton, and they are sort of a hidden gem that I didn't know about. So I just keep getting to learn more amazing things about our great schools.
No comments from me.
Trustee Mack?
No comments from me.
Trustee Belner?
I was able to zoom in on the FIGMAT, which is our Fiscal Crisis and Management Assistance team. Marin County Office of Ed always has a forum for school funding for the budget that just got presented from the governor. So that was really one of the more informative ones. And for new trustees, I think it was super helpful. Hopefully you were able to jump on that, Julie, and attend that. I just thought it was very thorough this time around, and they said it's a good budget. So that was the comment from FIGMAT, which doesn't always happen. Attended Marin Promise, their leadership and partnership councils, and Paint the Town Red just happened this last weekend. And Susan Matthews, the executive director of School Fuel, received the Citizen of the Year. So that was super exciting and so deserving of her to receive that. She goes beyond just education and how she serves in this community and her family. They give back in numerous ways, and it's, again, well-deserved for her to receive that.
So I would add to that I definitely am so grateful for all the things that School Fuel does for our schools, but also it was great to see Susan getting that recognition, and I was disappointed to have missed it. I did hear about President Miller driving by through the thing, which I was disappointed to miss that too. Tonight, I'm just going to report out on 2 new positions that have been filled in this volunteer community. Kristen Chikowski is now the new North Marin Council PTA Sped Chair. It's a new position that she has taken on. And we have Alicia Incho Ogiye, and I apologize. I already told her I might mess up her name. She is NUSD's new SEAC rep in the SPED community as well. And I just wanted to acknowledge and thank them for stepping up into those important roles.
Credit to Susan Matthews that this town recognizes her contribution. And we all have visited with her more than in this room and around town, realizing what value she's brought to the students of this community already, and it's nice to see the whole town stand up and recognize her. The other issue is I'm working with a group at the county office, and we're working with Marin Promise, and we're doing the process of doing a data survey, trying to figure out how better ways to make network access, internet access available to residences and to rural parts of the county, and that's ongoing. So I'll be reporting back to that periodically. And I want to thank and remind the community Julie Jacobson's work and taking time to go to all 15 of our schools and meet the staff. Everybody thinks this is a sit at the desk job. This is not. This is get to know the faculty, get to know the support staff, get to know the students, get to know the parents across the entire community. And every one of us, while we get elected by district, serve the entire population of Nevada. And I want to thank her for I know the work she's been doing She comes with questions that are always really interesting that I never have the answer to exactly. Thank you very much for that. So with that, I think we've covered all the comments. Oh, Superintendent Costa.
Hi, a couple things. This is the Susan Matthews hour. So proud of Susan. So proud of the city for recognizing the right person. I think we've all been through these experiences. And sometimes we think, yeah, they nailed it with this one. Well, they nailed it with this one with Susan. I can't think of anybody who's done more for our community and for our students. So well done, Susan. Sorry that I was unable to make it to your events. I just had significant conflicts for both of them associated with this. The other thing that I want to touch on is far from as positive as Susan Matthews and Citizen of the Year for Novato. There's been a lot of communications out there about me choosing to accept the vaccine on Sunday, January 17, after all of the Priority 1 employees were vaccinated and there were extra doses. I've heard a lot of criticism in that regard. I accept that criticism. I understand that everybody views my decision to take that vaccine in different ways. And some people feel like, as the captain of this ship, I should have waited until the end of the line, whereas others feel like, anybody whose arms we could have gotten those doses into were the right approach. Here's what I can say. I never want my personal actions to cast a shadow over this district and to put the district in a negative light. And there are many in the community who feel like I've done that. And with that in mind, I wish I could take it back. I wish I could go back in time and not do it. The reality is I can't. I made that decision. I made that with all due respect. I know that's going to be hard for folks to understand. And the fallout from this is harming the district. And, I struggle with my actions doing that. So just know that this has been hard for me. I know it's been hard for the community. Scarcity is a hard thing with this vaccine. I wish that our country had taken a different approach to this vaccine. I wish that we were in a different place. I wish that we could get this vaccine in every single educator's arms tomorrow. I will continue to advocate for all of our educators to be priority through this vaccination process. And I look forward to the day that we have it. Know that I understand those who have said that they support me making this decision, and that I also understand those who have criticized me for making this decision. I appreciate all of those perspectives. Can't go back in time. I look forward to moving forward and people give me an opportunity to make up for this decision if you're disappointed. So with that,
thanks, sir.
I conclude.
We're moving into item number 12, non-agenda public comment. This is the time for people who have a comment about something not on the agenda. We will take comment. If you have a comment on something that is on the agenda, I will ask you to make those comments at that time. We're going to limit this window to 20 minutes, which is the practice of this board, and each comment to 3 minutes. So with that, we will move into comments. And Jennifer, we have 4 queued up, and I'll have you switch to the first presenter. Thank you. And with the note that there are many written comments this board has received for every meeting, including this one, and we've read those comments, and many of those have been responded to directly, either directly by the superintendent or others, and other board members. So with that, we will take public comment at this time for non-agendized items. Jennifer, please.
Hi, good evening, trustees. Ross Ingalls. I'm the parent of 2 Novato Unified School Districts girls. Thank you for letting me speak tonight. I wanted to speak to you tonight on a no specific agenda item, but I feel it's important for the board, district staff, and the Novato Federation of Teachers to hear from at least one parent that believes it's past time to get our kids back into the classroom. My daughters haven't seen the inside of a classroom since March 13th of 2020. And I don't think there's any topic this district should be focusing on until the kids are back in class. Your one and only goal should be getting kids in the classroom. And until that is done, nothing else matters. No matter what anyone says, distance learning isn't the same. It's not even close to the same. It's not even in the same neighborhood as being the same as being in a real classroom. My oldest is a senior and is missing her entire senior year. No homecoming, no prom, no winter formal, no rallies, no sports, nothing. She has not a single good memory of being a senior in high school, and my heart breaks for her every day. From our house, we can see the gorgeous new softball field that was completed for what should have been her junior season last year, but she has yet to even set foot on that field. There's absolutely no other topic that this district that is more important to me and my family than getting our two girls back into the classroom and onto that softball field. I have begun to lose faith in the district and the teachers union for their apparent lack of cooperation to returning our kids to the classroom as soon as possible. It's taking way too long, and I'm utterly disgusted by the process, and I'm sick and tired of excuses and bickering between the district and the union, and I hold each party equally at fault for our kids not being in the classroom every day. On January 11th of this year, a coalition of 31 doctors and pediatricians from UCSF published an open letter urging California schools to open by February 1st. In their letter, they stated that the emergency department at Benioff Children's Hospital in Oakland had reported a temporal increase in the proportion of all children and youth 10 to 17 years old who had reported suicidal ideation, from 6% in March of 2020 to 16% in September. Similarly, the CDC reported that compared to 2019, the proportion of pediatric emergency visits due to mental health issues in 2020 increased by 24% in children 5 to 11 and 31% in children 12 to 17. Then this Sunday, the New York Times published an article titled "Surge in Student Suicide Pushes Las Vegas Schools to Reopen." The Clark County, Nevada School District, which is the nation's 5th largest district, is now moving to open schools as quickly as possible. Locally, there are approximately 39,654 students and 5,301 total staff members in Marin schools. That's over 45,000 people, and according to the Marin County Health and Human Services website, there have only been 130 total student cases and 37 staff cases of COVID. Of those 44 cases, only 7 are suspected of being transmitted in school. Are we really going to keep saying it's not safe to return to schools because 7 people out of 45,000 got sick at school? I beg the district and the union to please actually follow the data and science you talk so much about and do what is best for our kids and fully open schools as soon as possible.
Thank you. We're at the end of 3 minutes. Thank you, sir. Ross, it's always good to hear your voice. Next speaker. It takes a second or so for our system to pick the speaker up. So, I don't hear a speaker.
Okay, there we go. I think I'm here.
Here we go.
Could we restart the clock at 3 minutes, please?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Karen McCormish, and I'm in my 10th year of teaching at Loma Verde. Good evening, members of the board and Superintendent Casca. I don't know if you've seen the Loma Verde Facebook page this school year with posts of who is Loma Verde. They're fun portraits of our staff with some personal information that helps our parent community feel closer to us. Heck, it makes us smile and feel closer to each other. There's always a why statement and a speech bubble on the photo. Why? My why is my connection. I have a personal connection and a sense of belonging at Loma Verde. We have a very positive school culture and an amazing positive community of culture. Yes, that is our culture of caring, and without caring, you can't have a culture of competence. Without competence, how can we get to excellence? This isn't anything new. A recent unit in our social emotional curriculum was about how to state a problem without blame, examine possible solutions, and even ask for help. I know I don't speak for all teachers, but some of us teachers have a really big problem. And I've struggled for a long time trying to define this problem. But I think that fundamentally it's this. Teachers don't feel respected, not by the district and not by some of the public. Now, a solution. We need everyone who's interested in having excellent educators teaching our student to realize that teachers cannot do backflips 10, 12, 19 hours a day on behalf of our students, only to be assaulted on social media and in our own bargaining meetings. I'm asking all of you, but especially Chris, please be an upstander. I mean, we've all had those moments when someone makes a slightly sexist joke in our company, and it's difficult to interrupt that, to stop a person and let them know that the joke is sexist. and it's not okay to perpetuate derogatory comments. But it's something that we must do if we want it to end. So what does that have to do with the morale of teachers? This district's leadership needs to publicly support teachers, interrupt the message that it's the teacher's fault. How about a press release about, yes, it was a struggle and it was scary and confusing, but even without an agreement in place, we showed up. Teachers showed up. And we didn't just show up. As Jill Biden said, we have a heroic commitment to our students. Yet day after day, not a peep is heard that things are working out well at NUSD because of the teachers. Please communicate with us, engage with us, visit our sites, come and see what's going on. Publish press releases that are positive about the district and your teachers. We really need to feel like we're on the same team. Communicate with us. Parents on social media and even in this meeting are saying that schools aren't opening because of the teachers, as if it's our decision. Please stop messaging that the union is against the administration. Please stop messaging that the teachers don't want to open the doors to the schools.
We're at 3 minutes. We're at 3 minutes. Karen, thank you very much. So I would like to take your words. I want to, if there's an issue to be raised with an individual teacher and or superintendent by name, we have a complaint policy that can be used to put that in a process that will be reviewed by the board in a confidential manner. So I would ask everybody to refrain from making any of these comments personal. Clearly, there are some issues that need to be addressed, and we will let those can be done, but they need to be done the public part in a public way about policy and process. And if there's issues about personnel, they need to be handled in a respectful way if it's an instructor or if it's any other staff member in this district. So with that, thank you, and I will take the next comment.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. Hi, all Novato School Board trustees and student trustees. My name is Emma. I'm a community member calling in to voice my support for the removal of SROs from Novato campuses. Mostly what's been on my mind is I've been wondering how...
Emma, could you pardon me a moment?
Sure.
The comments we're doing now are for public comment, and are SROs on the topic? No. So this is appropriate. Thank you very much. Pardon me for interrupting your presentation. Could you restore time? Thank you. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. No worries. Yeah. Oh, so I was just wondering how the process of the proposed unit on SROs is going, and if the board is still planning to vote on the issue on March 16th. I know that there's a whole proposed process of collecting data from students and going through the data prior to making a vote. So I just wanted to check in to see if there was any updates on that. I also see that on the agenda, there is the vote on the anti-racist resolution as proposed by students in a previous meeting, as well as the proposal for the celebration or honoring of African American History Month. In relation to these topics, I just wanted to echo how national and local data does point to the disproportionate issuing of citations, arrests, and referrals to probation for students of color by SROs. This whole process feeds into the school to prison pipeline, which can have infinite negative lifelong effects on students. So I hope that in addition to recognizing African American history, in addition to recognizing an anti-racist resolution, that you will honor and listen to the students of color in your district, especially around the issues of incorporating armed law enforcement officers on your campuses in places of learning. Thank you very much.
Pardon me for having interrupted you, Emma. We'll move to the next speaker.
Hello. My name is Lori.
Lori Johnson's name on the screen.
That's me.
Okay.
My name is Lori Johnson. I'm a community member and a family nurse practitioner now, but was a school nurse in Novato and Ross Valley before going back to university. I'm working to eliminate the school resource officers and replace them with counselors, nurses, and better programs to restorative justice in Novato schools. I'm sure that you'll all agree with me that all children deserve to feel safe and nurtured at school. But in Marin County, children of color are suspended at 5 times the rate of white students and are over 100 times more likely to be charged with a minor offense. School resource officers have been shown to disproportionately push students of color into the juvenile justice system, thereby perpetuating the school to prison pipeline. This is completely unacceptable as it contributes to the school to prison pipeline. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Lori. Does that conclude that concludes our open session, open topic discussion. And so we're going to move on to staff reports. The next staff report is the governor's proposed budget by Yancy Hawkins. Superintendent Koska, would you like to introduce him?
Yeah, I'd just like to welcome Yancy Hawkins. As Trustee Butler mentioned earlier, it's not often that we have a meeting with FCMAT and they share that we have a good fiscal year. And I don't want to do much to steal Yancy's lead because it's so rare that our CBOs get to share positive news. But we do appreciate that the governor has acknowledged that there are some needs in schools this year and has provided some one-time money to help with that. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Assistant Superintendent Hawkins, who will share a whole lot more.
All right. Thank you, Chris. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Wonderful. All right. You did not steal my thunder, Trustee Butler and Superintendent Koska. But we did have, after so many times I've come here and noted the negative effects specifically of COVID on the state budget around the May revised from last year and the adopted budget that came through. We were due for some good news. So the governor's budget did provide that. One piece of caution I will note is that they are noting that this is what they call a K recession. So that means that the people of wealth, the people who are generating a lot of their income from the stock market have recovered relatively quickly, while lower income citizens in California and across the country are recovering much more slowly. So we will have to watch the impact on that because while fiscally that will support the state and school districts, there's also a lot of need out there, and that'll put pressure on the budget in order to do stuff to our folks who need it the most. So the first big piece of proposal is the COLA for 2021-2022. The governor is proposing that the state restore the COLA that was supposed to be given in 2020, 2021, but not until 2021, 2022. So that was a 2.3% COLA that the district had built its multi-year projections on back before May of last year. And so the governor is proposing to fund that in arrears. In addition to that, the governor is proposing a 1.5% statutory COLA for the 2021-2022 year. Another thing, it's a little bit in the background, but it is very important. One of the ways that the state was able to not impact school districts as much as it may have in the state budget was through something it calls apportionment deferrals. And that is when the state holds off on paying school districts a chunk of their money. And that was included in the adopted state budget to the tune of $11 billion across the state. This governor's budget proposal proposes to remove all but $2.7 billion of deferrals moving forward. But operationally, it doesn't propose to do that until next year because of some logistical reasons. So we still will have some cash flow issues that Nancy Walker and her team have set us up in a good place to deal with. So that won't be gone until next year. Two other areas that I wanted to bring up, and I want to be clear here, these are just proposals on the table. The first is incentive grants for schools to come back into session. The governor has asked the legislature to work quickly on this. It has seen very strong pushback, especially from the largest districts in the states, the LA Unifieds, the San Diego Unifieds, Long Beach, et cetera. But the governor is trying to put some money into incentivizing student return to campus. And the second piece of one-time funding is funding for expanded learning, and that could be a summer school, additional hours. There's a lot of potential options, and the governor is proposing that funding that would be potentially usable by school districts from March of this year through June 30th of 2022. Usually his proposal is wrapped up in, he revises his proposal in May, and it's adopted in June. The two items I noted, the governor has asked for action immediately on that. So I expect to give the board and the community some additional information as that process moves forward. But to be clear, the legislature has not approved either of those. So more to come on that. Overall, I think this was pretty much the best case scenario for state-funded districts in the state of California that we could have hoped for. And with that, I'm happy to open it up to questions.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Are there questions from trustees? Trustee Mack.
Sorry, I don't know why I took my mask off. Anyway, I actually attended the FICMAT presentation as well, and it was rather stunning to see the positivity emanating from folks that are very taciturn in nature, typically. Yeah. So I think we do have an opportunity to actually right a lot of the issues you've had to deal with in the recent months. And I'm looking forward to more details, but as Yancy pointed out, this is just the first draft. And there's still a lot of changes that can still come through, but I'm encouraged. It's good news.
Other comments or questions at this point?
If I could add something before you come back, Mr. Assistant Superintendent Hawkins. This is a good news budget. This is a good news budget that's filled with one-time money.
Correct.
So the ongoing money in this budget is small. It catches us up from a COLA that we didn't get last year and provides a small COLA this year. We're appreciative of all of that. Don't get me wrong, but what I want the community to hear and understand, and what I want you to hear and understand, is that this helps us a great deal to feel comfortable in the 2021 school year financially. And as we enter the 21-22 school year, should this money actually come through and be accessible to us with reasonable constraints. The third thing is that we still face a pretty significant fiscal cliff in the 22-23 school year. When this one-time money goes away, when we no longer benefit from the government, state government supporting us with the pension relief changes, and we're no longer benefiting from the hold harmless on our enrollment, and the impacts of our declining enrollment over the past several days impact us. So I don't want to be Debbie Downer on this one, or not that you're Debbie Downer, you're Debbie Butler. but I don't want to be Debbie Downer on this one. But I do want to, I want us to savor this moment for the next couple of years. But I just want us to keep our eyes on the prize, which is the ongoing revenues that we need to help sustain us in the 22-23 school year and beyond. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Mr. Hawkins.
Mr. Hawkins, before you go back, could you just remind us the timeline to get from here, the first week of January, to our adopted budget at the beginning of the next fiscal year? What are the milestones, and when do we get updates?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. So at the February 9th meeting, we're scheduled to bring the budget development calendar, and that'll have a whole lot of details. But the 50,000 foot level is this year a little bit different than others. We're going to look very specifically at those two funding proposals by the governor that they're taking up early. But the next traditional spot is the governor's May revision to that budget. That takes into consideration the additional revenue that we've brought in over the preceding 5 months after his January. And then we are required to adopt our budget, and the state is required to adopt its budget by June 30th of each year. And then to Superintendent Koska's point, sending it back to me, thank you. You said it better than I could. So thank you. The one thing that I do want to caution and the board on is that the revenue projections that were included in the governor's proposed budget mostly came for collections through November and December for differing tax revenues. That was before the stay-at-home order that was in place all across the state. So we're very much going to have to be watching those monthly state revenue reports to see if we're still matching up with the updated projections that are used in the governor's budget. So lots to come. This is the first big.
We lost your audio.
This is the first main item as we move forward till the 21-22 budget adoption, and definitely all the points that Chris made. The governor has not given us any relief from the substantial issues that face the district in 2022, 2023, and beyond.
Thank you, sir. If there's no other questions, we'll move on. This was a discussion item. So we got a report from our staff, and we have no action to take. Thank you very much. The next item is a discussion action item. It's 14A, approval of resolution 17, proclaiming anti-racist education. Jonathan will be providing our presentation.
Thank you, Trustee Miller. Good afternoon. I'm sorry, Trustees Jonathan Ferrer, Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources. Before you is a recommendation on an anti-racist education resolution for the district. As you recall, NUSD scholars presented to you previously their experiences and perspectives of racial awareness and injustice within our communities. At that time, they committed to bring forward to you an anti-racist education resolution. Through support from Phoebe Smith, representing our Educational Services Division, the scholars submitted a resolution for district consideration. The Human Resources Division of the district was honored to sponsor their work. After review of the resolution from our NUSD Educators of Color Group, Human Resources, Educational Services, and District Cabinet, the district recommends to the board a first reading of this proposal and seeks any feedback for revision for a subsequent second reading and approval. It is my pleasure to introduce at this time Phoebe Smith and the NUSD scholars who initiated this work to provide you with additional information.
Thanks, sir.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us. While I'm pulling up the presentation, I will invite our teaching staff member of the Samarin Equity team, West Swedlow to say a couple of words. He also has been working with this amazing group of students, but even, before this, 10 years holding the space for students to discuss and process issues of equity on our school campuses. So I'll just pass it over to you, Wes.
Thank you, Phoebe, and thank you everyone for letting us present. Yeah, I just want to say that I've been working with students for a good decade on this issue, and this issue obviously precedes that decade, by hundreds of years. The issue of structural racism is intense and profound, and I think we've had this equity imperative for a long time, but it's definitely time to move forward to a resolution. And I just want to call out the students for their bravery to come forward and help us do the work that I think we've been needing to do for a long time. So thanks for letting us come forward. And I'm going to pass it back over to Phoebe. Did you want to introduce the students?
Yes. Thank you all for your continued partnership in this significant paradigm shift. From George Floyd and before, actually, to the dynamics of racial injustice in our country and our communities today. As an educator and a restorative justice practitioner, it has been one of my most proudest moments working with the leadership, staff, and students in this district during these times. We are in an inflection moment, and I truly feel hopeful that in this space, with this group of people, we can work together, truly championing diversity, actively ensuring inclusion. And through this document we are presenting today to you, taking an honest look at racial inequitable structures. I want you to know that we have been reminding ourselves as leaders of students and concurrently educating students at the same time about the processes and ups and downs of activism. This process alone offers real life lessons of victories and disappointments, defining this work, and helps to shape all of us in our pursuit of being the change that we want to see in the world. Thank you for creating a space to allow our future leaders in being prepared to step into spaces where masses will be listening.
Thank you.
These opportunities offer the answer to the question change makers are always asking themselves, can I do this? Can I make this happen? The opportunities to raise their voices in these spaces are giving these students and others who are watching a resounding yes response to those questions. I would like to reintroduce some of the change makers I speak of tonight. There are Novato Unified School District Anti-Racist Resolution Team. Working on this project with us were Raphael Ragland. I'm not sure if he's on the call here tonight. He couldn't get the link, but if he's here, great. But if not, I just want to acknowledge him because he worked hard with us to put the resolution together. He's a junior at Marin Oaks High School. And we also have with us this evening, Jabani Gloystein. She's a senior at Novato High School. And Mahalia Morgan, who's a sophomore at San Marin High School. And Mizani Reese, who's a junior at San Marin High School. Thank you for coming this evening, and you all can start your presentation.
So we're just going to be reading through our resolution. Whereas Novato Unified School District recognizes that institutional racism has created harmful environments for our Black, Indigenous, and people of color. And whereas Novato Unified School District acknowledges direct and indirect racist occurrences within its community. And whereas Novato Unified School District acknowledges its ongoing challenges in eliminating racism. And whereas Novato Unified School District is committed to eliminating systemic disparities and ensuring systemic equity. And whereas addressing the needs of BIPOC learners requires the district to engage in continuous learning and to disrupt current policies and practices that perpetuate racism and disparities in educational opportunities.
And whereas all students benefit from staff of diverse backgrounds, specifically its teachers. And whereas Novato Unified School District will develop and implement anti-racist pedagogy and curriculum, including but not limited to an anti-racist ethnic studies course. And whereas each of us, individually and collectively, is responsible for creating and nurturing an anti-racist academic environment where each and every community member is respected, valued, and feels safe, regardless of implicit biases based on the color of another's skin.
Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Novato Unified School District will engage in behaviors, policies, and practices to combat systemic racism. And be it further resolved that the Novato Unified School District, through its various departments, consider the purchase, development, and offering of training resources that support critical dialogue and effective implementation of anti-racist practices across the entire Novato Unified School District systems. These resources will be embedded in professional development as integral components of the district's work with teachers in all subjects, and implementation of anti-racist practices will be expected of all district staff. And be it further resolved that the Novato Unified School District will consult with parents, educators, and community groups to identify additional measures of racial inequity in the district and consider developing metrics for measuring the impact of anti-racist actions on student achievement, attendance, emotional well-being, and feelings of connectedness. And be it further resolved, this board commits itself not only to address the symbols of institutional racism and white supremacy, but also to proactively identify and disrupt biases, practices, policies, and remove institutional barriers that perpetuate injustice and inequality in our schools and our community, and provide confidential and accessible means for reporting acts of racism and bias by students and staff. And be it further resolved, the Board of Trustees may consider an audit through educational services of the courses of study and to explore the resources to possibly revise all courses of study for inclusion of anti-racist content.
And be it further resolved, the Board of Trustees may consider committing to convening an anti-racism task force to review the implementation and impact of anti-racist policies and practices. This task force will be chaired by the Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services and shall include BIPOC representation of students, staff, and community members. And be it further resolved, the Board of Trustees commits to develop a specific anti-racist policy by date to be determined to augment our current anti-discrimination policy, which will be posted at each school site in a prominent location. The board further commits to this policy being established collaboratively with our students, parents, and staff of color. And be it further resolved, the Board of Trustees commits to, through the Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources, resources for the support of BIPOC employees of the district, and to consider that all decision-making hiring teams include BIPOC employees. And be it further resolved that the Novato Unified School District will actively acknowledge and address and prevent racial bias when practicing discipline by considering the funding and utilization of restorative practices instead of punitive disciplinary practices when appropriate. And be it further resolved that the Novato Unified School District will measure the impact of the aforementioned actions items by capturing BIPOC attendance and achievement data, as well as survey data to include feelings of school connectedness and a sense of belonging. This data will be gathered and reviewed once a year and presented by the Board of District staff. We would like to thank you, the NUSD Board of Trustees, for your consideration of this resolution. We would also like to acknowledge Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources and Educational Services, Superintendent Chris Koska, student equity teams at Marin Oaks, Novato High, and Samarin High, Novato Community Equity Group, group, community members, and parents for their encouragement and support. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have, so I'm going to ask for public comment before we bring this back to the board. And to be questioned to Superintendent Costa. The item on the agenda is for final action, and I heard a comment that this was a first reading prepared for a second reading. I believe we're in a position to act on this finally this evening. Is that what you intended to put before us?
I think Assistant Superintendent Ferrer wants to acknowledge that this is a seismic change. I mean, this is an important resolution. I think we would support the board approving it tonight. We always want to be respectful of the board when we bring something that has significant change and commits us to significant actions. And I believe this resolution has those sort of teeth that some other resolutions don't. So we wanted to be mindful to give the board appropriate time to absorb this and wrap their head around it. But should the board be in a position to approve it tonight, we would certainly embrace that. And while I'm speaking, I can add that there's been a lot of consternation around where we have commitments in this policy and where we have more language that gives us some wiggle room, right? In the beginning, it came to us with all shalls and musts. We backed almost all of those out for purpose of conversation with our different departments to say, hey, are you willing to commit to this? Can we commit to this? And we're proud that we've been able to remove most of those sort of wiggle words and say we shall do this, we must do this. And so every department that's touched by the commitments in this document have signed off on them and said, yes, we want to take this work on, we can take this work on within our constraints that we have as a system. So everyone that has put their fingers on this has agreed that that this is something we can do before we brought it to the Board of Trustees. I just wanted you to know that story. And it's been quite a journey. And I can't say how proud I am of a number of people, the students on our screen here, Phoebe and Wes Swedlow, who have continued to rise this up in importance in sharing by sharing the student voice, not rising it up because Wes Swedlow believes in this, although I know he very much does. And not Phoebe Smith rising it up because Phoebe Smith believes in it, because she very much does. And then having somebody that they could hand it off to push it across the finish line. And that was Assistant Superintendent Jonathan Ferrer, who every fiber of his being believes in this work. And his actions demonstrate that. So I can't say how much appreciation I have for everybody that's put their fingertips on this really important resolution.
Thank you, sir. So with that, I'm going to ask for public comment. Jennifer, we have no public comment on this item. Okay. Okay, so let's go around the table. Trustee Mack, I see your hand in the air first, and then Trustee Mack.
Thank you.
I saw Trustee Nell first, pardon me, I misspoke.
Oh.
Well,
You guys look so much alike.
I support the resolution in its current form and entirety, and I would be willing to move ahead to tonight. But at the same time, anytime that we can have an opportunity to discuss racism, systemic racism, and an actual proactive steps towards combating racism is a good thing. So if there's a reason, or I for one would like to publicly discuss some of the reasons why maybe it was brought forward originally with the shalls and must do type of concepts. I'd like to hear more about that. So I am willing to, if the board feels that they want to go ahead and pass it tonight in its entirety, that's fine with me. I would support it. But at the same time, I think the more we bring it up and the more we discuss it, the better we'll all be for it. I do want to acknowledge that this resolution does have some what I interpret as things that we are going to do. And as a result of them, will likely lead to the need for resources to be spent and applied in these areas to be anti-racist. So I I think that this is one of our better resolutions. So everyone who's responsible for it at this point, I thank you for bringing it forward and appreciate how well it's been done.
Trustee Mack.
Thanks, Derek. That's well said. I'll go right out and say I'm ready to vote on this yes a million times. I really appreciate all the effort that's put into this, not only into putting it together, not only into talking with other departments about how it might be implemented, but as well, the presentation itself. That's the best presentation I've seen for a resolution ever in terms of showing us each individual whereas and or condition, et cetera. Really hit home, and you guys did a great job. You need to be commended for that. It's wonderful. One thing I really want to also point out is I'm very happy to see that there was language added in that acknowledged our history here in Nevada that has not been perfect. It goes all the way back to when I was a kid here. And it's something that, you know, despite all of our best efforts, and I know Trustee Millerick has been at the forefront of those efforts for decades, it still persists. And so the point I'm trying to make is, while it's long overdue for us to have this resolution and for us to do things, this isn't the end. We got a lot of work to do, and it's never going to end. We're going to always be doing this stuff because it's just, it doesn't go away. And it's something we all need to work on. I need to work on, all of us do. So I want to say thank you to Phoebe and to Wes for your leadership. Of course, to Jonathan as well, but most of all to the students for stepping up. This is great work. Thank you.
Trustee Butler.
Yeah, this is a very effective resolution. This is one of the best ones I've seen. I saw some of the draft versions and now seeing the final document. Great work in putting this together. It has teeth to it, which I like. I don't like to just pass a resolution just to pass a resolution. We have some work to do, but for the passage of this, which I would support passing this evening, begins to take down the barrier a little bit. And we've got to do the hard work. And everything in this document needs to be addressed. It's nice to hear that it was checked by each department, and everybody's on board. And this board seems to be on board, I hope, too. So thank you for putting the work into this, and it's just beginning.
So I pretty much concur. I would add that I think one of the things that just stood out to me the most is that there was intent in making sure that what we said we were going to do. And I think that really needs to be a focus, because it's easy to have these things put out there and not realize that we really need to do something, or that we should do something about what we say we're going to do. And the piece of accountability at the end, I think is important. And I believe in this, the only thing that I would ask is to understand more how we can make sure that we review and show accountability for this. I don't want it to be that we just say, yes, we're doing it, but that there is something concrete. And I do say that it's scheduled and that we'll be doing that, but who is doing it, and making sure that the people who are looking at what we're doing are the right people, and we don't just say we're meeting what we said we were. So I appreciate the work that's been done in the student presentation, which was really well laid out, and I can't thank you enough for all the work you guys have done collectively on this.
I'm going to ask our two student trustees. Ava, I see your hand in the air, and then Elizabeth, I'm going to help you share it as well right after. Ava, do you want to speak to this?
Yeah, I just want to say.
Pardon me, I just stumbled on your name.
Oh, all good. Happens all the time. I just want to say thank you so much to the students and staff and faculty that worked on this resolution. I think it's far overdue that a resolution like this be put in place. And the one thing that I want to emphasize is the accountability part. When making any decision regarding staff or students, you need to come back to this document, this resolution, and make sure that it's all lined up, because these are people's well-beings on the line. Yeah, I really want to thank the students and staff who worked on this.
Elizabeth?
I just I wanted to add a little bit onto what Eva had to say. I think anti-racist education is so beyond important, and so it's about damn time that we are here making this decision today. Um, I was I was actually reading some excerpts last week, and in honor of Martin Luther King Jr. Day, and it was cool because I noticed one quote from Rosa Parks, and she said, "To bring about change, you must not be afraid to take the first step." And I think that education is this first step. And so the greatest solution to this harmonious life that we all want to achieve is something that can only be achieved through learning and teaching. And I know that's why you guys are here. That's why I'm here. And so I promise you today, I promise to make sure that your word, your faith, and your loyalty to this resolution stays and continues to be something that we see working in the school district beyond the years to come. So thank you guys for working so hard. And I promise I will do everything I can to ensure your guys' beliefs and faith into this system because it's really important.
Marie, any comments? Yes, Marie, have a comment? Trustee Aguilar?
Yeah. Okay, so thank you very much for this resolution. I'm glad we have it in front of us. I am willing to approve, even make a motion that we approve this tonight. However, there's a couple of things that I think could be better. You guys all know I like resolutions to be positive, right? Because I think resolutions that are positive tend to be more effective. So, the first sentence where it says this NUSD recognizes that institutional racism has created harmful environments. I'd say that we take tonight as the first step, and we move forward, and we say racism can or does create harmful environments for, and then keep that. So instead of saying has, just can or does. That makes it positive. That makes it we're moving forward. That makes it like this is the first step. Everything else looks great. For me, I think I have a question about where it says purchase. So it would be like on the first. So that'd be.
Which whereas are you on?
I'm looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10, the 10th paragraph. It says, be it further resolved that NUSD, through its various departments, considers the purchase. So when we're talking about money here, I would feel that if we have more wiggle room by saying, I really like that says that we develop and offering training and support and critical dialogue. I just have a question about purchase.
So in that regard, it does say we will consider the purchase. So
Yeah.
this is, of course, depending on us having the ability and the funds to do so. We would consider doing that. So this is one where it's still a little squishy because we can't predict what every fiscal scenario will be moving forward.
Okay.
So that's why we have consider.
So I'm okay with that. Then the next paragraph, I think it's excellent. The symbols, be it resolved that this board commits itself not only to address the symbols of institutional racism and white supremacy, but also, and then it goes on. I do commit to this. I just think that the word white supremacy is, ironically, it's a little bit racist. I think that if we leave it at, and I'm willing to make a motion for this tonight, like I said, it says this board commits itself not only to address the symbols of institutional racism, and that's very powerful, but also to proactively identify. And I think that includes everybody. That includes Asians, Latinos, whites, everybody, So if we can take a look at that. And other than that, everything looks great.
I'm looking there specific edits that we can apply?
So the edit on that paragraph. So the only two edits I'm asking for is to get rid of the first paragraph. There was the word has to can or does, and instead of created, just create. And then the last paragraph on the first page, get rid of white supremacy so that it includes everybody. And everything else, it's wonderful. And I would love to make a motion with those amendments.
Let's get all the trustees' comments first
Yeah.
before we get down to that level. So there's two of us left. Julie and I have comments. Julie?
Sure, thanks. I just want to thank the team that put this together. Your guys' work was thorough and thoughtful, and I appreciate the way you went through this. I don't think that we should make a change to this that right off the bat diminishes someone's experience. So I think, with all due respect, that change that you're requesting, it takes away from the experience that we're trying to fix. I also think that changing the words that have been put forth by the people who need these changes undermines the whole thing.
Okay. So we have one more comment, mine, and then I'll entertain a motion. Do we have any public comment at this? No, we're still good. Okay. So here's my 2 cents worth. I've served on this board for 30 years. I've served in this community for 30 years. I've served longer than that. I was on site leadership team before that. And there have been people who preceded me who have attempted to address the issue of unequal treatment based on race in this town. And I want to hold my respect up to the Concerned Parents of Novato, the CPON organization that was organized significantly around members that came out of the Hamilton Air Base, because we had a much more diverse population then. And I want to acknowledge Lois Moore, who taught at Samarin High School, an African-American woman who led that effort. There are people that and taught you, was your teacher, probably Spanish teacher, I believe, language teacher. So there are people that have thought about these issues of unequal treatment and unequal behavior long before we did, and have taken actions. And I want to thank Ms. King, who put on the Laramie Project twice at the San Marin campus to address those issues of bias. So as we're sitting here, we are not the first people to think about this problem, but certainly the issue is on our table this evening. And I want to thank Phoebe and Wes for the hard work they've done. I want to thank Jonathan and the superintendent for the hard work that they have done. I think it's time for Novato to think about this and take the next step. Lois Moore is not serving on our campus today. I miss her voice, but we have a voice here and we need to take our steps forward. So what I would like to do is accept the motion for the resolution as proposed. And then if there's an amendment to modify the languages, listen for an amendment for the specific language. I think that's an easier way for us to deal with the issue in front of us. Julie, would you like to make a motion to move this resolution?
I would love to so move.
I'll second.
And a second by Trustee Mack. Now, Maria, I understand you want to make a revision. Do you want to make a proposed amendment to that modifies particular language so we can?
I just think that it'd be more possible. First of all, I didn't say that I wanted to thank everybody that worked on this. And I know it's a lot of work, and with other resolutions, I've spent hours and hours at midnight and later, late into the evening. And I'm sure this was the same process. I think it's wonderful.
For one language, one sentence, and we'll vote on that.
Yes. So to make it just positive moving forward, first paragraph, racism can and does create harmful environments.
So you want to change the word has
Correct.
to the words can and does.
Mm-hmm. And this is with all
she's gonna propose an amendment.
And this is with all respect. I'm not stepping over anybody's foot, but it is our job to go over this.
That's what we're doing. I'm trying to do it in a really structured way. So we have something. So Marie's proposed an amendment that takes the first clause and changes the word institutional racism has to institutional racism can and does. That's the proposed amendment. Do I have a comment?
So it
Trustee
does. Okay, so my concern is I do not want to take anything away from the fact that this is real and it has happened. That's what I'm concerned about. And so can makes it sound like it might happen. It does. That's not the case. It does happen.
So we can leave it at does. That's okay.
But I just don't see the difference between has and does.
Yeah.
That's all. I mean, you could say has and does. And
I'm
one's
a-
past, one's future. That's all.
I would be okay with does.
I just don't want to leave any crack of uncertainty here.
So you want to change your proposal to has and does? Is that what you're?
Racism does create harmful.
No, well, you said, is it, I need specific language. That's what I'm trying to get to. I need you to say exactly what you want us to.
Nevada Unified School District recognizes that institutional racism does create harmful environments for our Black, Indigenous, and people of color.
So your proposal is to change the word for has to does.
Yes.
Okay.
My problem with that, if I may, does not acknowledge the past. Because it
I agree.
has created big problems for us.
And that was my
for
point,
decades.
is that we're starting fresh, we're moving forward.
But we have to acknowledge what caused this. We have to acknowledge our role.
I mean, as a Latino person, I know there's been past.
Mhm.
So I myself have
So
been,
we got 7 here. So Diane, you have some comments and then we're going to take a vote on this one item and move on. Diane?
I respect the fact that we should get the wording right. My concern is that this is being presented by people who actually worked really hard on every single word in here. And I don't mean to take away from our right to make changes, but I just feel it's a little disrespectful for us to start wordsmithing at this point. So that's just my 2 cents. And I don't disagree that maybe some words could change, but to me, this isn't about me. It's about what is presented in front of us as what they would like to see us pass.
So we have a motion. We need a second for us to consider. Is there a second for Marie's language change on the first?
and there's no disrespectful.
Of course
I'm
not.
being very respectful. I'm just
I don't
making,
hear
I'm
a
just
second. We're going to move on.
trying to make it better.
Okay, I don't hear a second, so we're going to drop this item and move on to the second item, which is at the bottom of the page, which says, and I'm reading, of institutional and white supremacy, of institutional racism and white supremacy. Does everybody see where I'm reading? The top of the last paragraph?
Yeah.
So okay, Marie, you want to tell us what you're
So
proposing?
I'm saying if we say racism, leave the racism there, that includes, and get rid of white supremacy, that includes everybody.
So your proposal is to strike the words white supremacy?
Correct. With all respect, it's just, in my opinion, I feel
I'll
it's
comment
just.
again unless someone else wants to. I'm jumping in on a lot. I apologize.
We got a few minutes to do, Greg?
Okay. So I would defer to exactly what Diane said, that we need to respect the work that was done by the team, by the folks. They put a lot of effort and thought into every one of these words. So that's the beginning. But the other point I'd make is by eliminating that word, we're whitewashing it out because it's real. And I almost am reminded as people who retort by saying all lives matter when they're asked if Black lives matter. And frankly, this is kind of the same thing. White supremacy is real. Not only is it real, it's real in this town. And I think it's important that it's in here. It's been in this town since I was a 13-year-old. So it's real. That's why I think it's real.
Other comments? So Diane?
Ava.
Oh, pardon me. I'm sorry. I'm just blind. Ava, and then Elizabeth. Pardon.
Wesley, Rhonda, and Giovanna would like to also speak.
Sure. Okay. Thank you very much.
If Wesley and Giovanni want to go first because they created this resolution, I can go right after.
So we'll call on Wesley first, and then it was Giovanni, you said it was second?
I'll defer to Giovanni. I'll go after Giovanni. Go ahead.
Giovanni, you're like the hero here, huh?
Yeah, wow, front of the line. Thank you, guys. I just want to clarify because I think there's a disconnect happening with the context for this specific language. The reason for putting it in there is, I don't want to say to villainize or to single people out. Like, we do want to include all of those forms of racism, but there are symbols, which is what this paragraph is talking about, symbols either displayed by teachers, students, what have you, that are not specifically racist or harmful speech, but still make students feel uncomfortable or unsafe, if that makes sense. And I think that the wrong group, at least with this concern, with this language, we're thinking of the wrong group to protect. This is protecting the students who see these symbols and are uncomfortable and unsafe because of these, not trying to protect the students who are showing these symbols, if that makes sense.
Thank you for your comments. So I believe that Giovanni's next, and then we'll move on to Eva. I got it right this time, Eva.
Eva, do you want to go?
Sure. Yeah. I think that changing any language from this document is taking away from the extremely hard work that the students and faculty put into this document. I also think that taking away the words white supremacy is not racist in the slightest. It's holding people accountable for their actions and for the things that have been happening in this district for so long. So I also think that, and I mean this in no disrespect, I believe that trying to make this positive isn't helping. It's not going to make as much change as if it was direct. What we want to happen and the reality of what's actually happening are two completely different things. So that's where I stand. I don't think that any of this should be changed. Yeah.
Elizabeth? What, Giovanni, you want to go, and then we'll do Elizabeth?
Or Wes?
Wes? Hang on.
Yeah, I just want to say that, historically, the whole concept of race is predicated on the notion of whiteness as superior. And so it's just a fact that it's true that racism is perpetrated by all kinds of groups, but the whole concept of race is a white supremacist concept. So if you erase that from this document, you erase the whole purpose of trying to fight racism. So as an anti-racist document, I don't think that we can historically, morally, or even, effectively remove that without sort of removing the whole point of what we're trying to accomplish here.
Thank you. And Elizabeth, who else did I miss?
And you have a comment.
Is there anybody else besides me? I just want to make sure everybody's getting heard.
So just Elizabeth, before you dive in, we're going to have Elizabeth talk, and then Rhonda Fleming, our coordinator, wants to also add some thoughts. So we'll let Elizabeth go. We'll make Rhonda a panelist, and Rhonda will jump in and share her perspective.
All right. So I just wanted to mention something that I have found really interesting. I feel like as a white person, I've seen with my own eyes white supremacy that is something that's very evident in our society. We saw it just a few weeks ago in the national headlines of our news. And I feel like I understand where people might be coming from when they say they want to tweak the words. But what I have to stand with throughout this entire thing is that sometimes seriousness is needed in order for our actions to be taken seriously. So, for example, in order to properly address what we are trying to mend, we can't leave any wiggle room. And because we are the people that have a power to make a decision, we need to all band together and take this how it is, acknowledge history, try these proposals and make a decision. Because, I mean, the only way that we can move forward is acknowledging history so it's not repeated. And so keeping this resolution's authenticity is how we can live forward in history and not make the same mistakes as before. We have to listen to what the oppressed have to say in order to actually do something positive about it.
Thanks. Who is Chris? You said
Rhonda Fleming is going to pop on the screen, and she's going to share her thoughts. So Rhonda's our coordinator of multi-tiered systems of support.
Thank you, Rhonda. I'm sorry, the print's so little, my eyes can't see it.
No, that's okay. Good evening, trustees, superintendent, and most importantly, the students that are sitting on this panel tonight. I know that from watching your last presentation and what you shared tonight, it causes you to relive some experiences that are very much have created a lot of trauma. And I felt compelled to speak up and ask the board to really consider, in terms of the discussion about the word, thinking about has versus can. I very much want to share my opinion that these are lived experiences from our students and from our members of a community. It has happened, it continues to happen. The first step to creating change is that acknowledgement. And so I really want to urge the board to think about that. And I've heard many members say that right now, but we can't move forward if we can't acknowledge what has already happened and what is still happening every single day for many of our students. And words have power. They mean something. So I really want to urge us all to think about that and not minimize and dilute the experiences that our students have shared, our experiences that educators of color share in common with them, and that we live every single time, every single day. So I just wanted to express my opinion about that because it is not a little thing. We want to move forward, but in order to move forward, you have to acknowledge the present and you have to acknowledge the past. So that's all I wanted to add to this conversation. Thank you.
I want to move on and see if we can, there's an amendment proposed to remove the words white supremacy. I'm looking for a second for us to consider. Do I have a second? I do not, so we're going to drop that. So we're back to considering the entire motion as originally proposed.
So,
Thank you, Marie, for your.
you're welcome.
And we have a
Can I say something?
motion by Julie Jacobs, and we'll need a second.
Can I?
I think we already have a second. Greg second. So now we're down to the vote. Marie.
I just want to clarify something, that I've lived racism, and don't want to say that I'm probably the only that I'm the only board member here that has lived it. I'm sure we've all lived some kind of prejudice or racism. And so I want to acknowledge that because I did live it. And I'm not belittling this resolution. I'm just doing my job as a board trustee. I do this with every single resolution. So I don't want to insult anybody, and I don't want to be insulted by saying that I'm minimizing this resolution, because I'm not. I'm just doing my job, trying to make it better. But as a trustee, we got to do the voting. And I think that I want to, this is very serious. So I don't want to be insulted by saying that this is not, that I don't think this is serious, because it is. It is my job. So I'm okay. You guys want to leave it? I think it would have been stronger, in my opinion. But let's go ahead and vote. And
so the first thing we'll take is an advisory vote from our student trustees. For the entire motion as proposed. Ava, yes. Elizabeth, yes. Eva, yes. One of these days. Maybe there's 3 people there. Okay, and then I need a vote from all in favor of the resolution as proposed this evening. 7 at the board. So we have 9 trustees in total, and the measure is adopted, with thanks to the hard work of our student community who has brought this forward. And thank you very much for a very worthwhile conversation. I'm thrilled to have you members of the Novato community and partner with you in that role. Okay, on to the next item. Adoption of Resolution 18, Proclamation as African American History Month. And I believe Jen Larson, I saw her smiling face show up on the screen. Jen's going to lead us. And Chris, do you want to walk us into that?
No, I just, I want to acknowledge that historically, Novato Unified School District has passed a resolution around African American History Month. I want to acknowledge that our administrators have been talking from the beginning of the school year about the importance of us actively embracing the resolutions that we pass. That it's not enough to pass a resolution. We need to demonstrate that we value what we say we're acknowledging in that resolution. And so it is my belief that our schools are taking African American History Month very seriously this year. There's going to be activities on each campus around this important topic, and I'm just, if we will continue to get better as it goes to honoring these resolutions. I'm a big believer that we don't bring a resolution in front of you unless we're willing to do what it says we're going to do in the resolution. So that's a commitment that we make. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Assistant Superintendent Larson.
Oh, I like that title.
Yeah.
She wears it well. Yeah,
Good evening, everyone. Jen Larson. I'm currently the Assistant Superintendent of Ed Services, and I am here tonight to obtain approval for adoption of Resolution 18, which is our 2021 proclamation that February 2021 is African American History Month. Before I begin, I just want to first thank the incredible work and commitment of the group that came prior to this, and what a beautiful introduction and lead-in to this proclamation. I'm so proud of just the courage and inspiration that our student leaders bring. Those of you who have known my work, student leadership is a strong passion of mine, and to see our students speaking and being a part of the not just giving input, but actually being part of the action and bringing a resolution forward that demands next steps and something tangible and concrete is just an incredible part of our organizational history. And so thank you. With that, I want to read our 2021 proclamation of National African American History Month. As Superintendent Koska mentioned, we really have taken another look at all of our resolutions, and we really do think it's important that each year we look at these and we make sure that we are updating to make them most relevant and historically accurate. And so with this proclamation and resolution specifically, what you'll notice is an addition of some historical background that has not been present in the past, but also the NUSD commitments that are an overview of some of what you've heard in the last proclamation. With that, I'm here to proclaim the month of February 2021 as National African American History Month. Whereas Carter G. Woodson, noted African American historian, author, and journalist, raised awareness of African Americans' contributions when he and the organization he founded, the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History, conceived and announced Negro History Week in 1925. And whereas the event was first celebrated during the week in February in 1926 that encompassed the birthdays of both Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass, two key figures in history of African Americans. And whereas in 1976, the week-long celebration was extended to the entire month of February. And whereas during National African American History Month, February 2021, and every month, Nevada Unified School District is committed to the recognition and acknowledgement of the contributions made and the important presence of African American to the United States of America. And whereas African Americans helped develop our nation in countless ways, those recognized, unrecognized, and unrecorded. Whereas the observance of National African American History Month calls our nation's attention to the continued need to battle racism and to build a society that lives up to its democratic ideals, and to recognize disparities in student outcomes in order to move towards greater equity in our education system and our greater community. Whereas this observance permits society to re-examine its role in preserving the civil rights of all citizens. And whereas the Nevada Unified School District recognizes that each student needs an opportunity to understand the common humanity underlying all people, to develop pride in his or her own identity and heritage, and to understand, respect, and accept the identity and heritage of others. Whereas corresponding school activities held during this month encourage students to continue to strive for the best education as a means to fulfill their potential. And whereas the History, Social Studies, Science framework of California Public Schools, kindergarten through grade 12 states, the history curriculum of community, state, region, nation, and world must reflect the experiences of those of different racial, religious, and ethnic groups, and must be integrated at every level. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Nevada Unified School District Board of Trustees does hereby fully support February 2021 as National African American History Month and encourages the participation of this special annual tribute by learning and celebrating the generations of African Americans who have positively influenced and enriched our nation and society. With that, I turn it over to the board and ask for your approval of this resolution.
Thank you very much. So let me ask if there's any public comment first. There are no public comments. So trustees, Trustee Aguilar.
I'd like to make a motion
So,
that we
second
approve
by
this.
Trustee
This,
Mack, moved
this
by
actually looks good.
Okay.
I'll second that.
So Diana, you're gonna vote? Yeah. We're waiting. Come on.
I'm sorry, but I know that I have to sign this.
Well, there'll be plenty of time.
Yeah, there's 2 different formats.
So so all in favor of the motion for resolution number 18, we have an advisory vote by the student trustees, Elizabeth and Eva. Do I see your hand in the air? I do. And thank you very much. And the trustees, all in favor of? 7 in favor of, none opposed. Thank you. This motion passes. Thank you very much. Thank you for the first and the second. And we are going to move on to item 14C, which is the District Advisory Committee. And Chris Koska is going to lead us in this. And I believe Chris is now online on the Zoom call. So he's at his desk and can use his computer to help do the presentation. So Superintendent Costa, would you like to take the floor?
Absolutely. Thank you for this opportunity to talk with you about an important topic for our community tonight. This is the structure and membership of our 7-11 committee. This is a recommendation from staff. The staff makes this recommendation understanding that the board has difficult decisions to make around this committee. Again, I want to acknowledge that this is a controversial topic, an opportunity for this to become contentious tonight. I do ask that people listen with open minds, regardless of the perspective you bring to the room. In the end, at the end of this discussion tonight, I'm confident that the board will make the right decision for our community, whether it be to accept the recommendation, make minor changes to the recommendation, or ask us to come back with a significant redo. Regardless of what happens tonight, I believe that we are far better off because of the conversation that has been had. That being said, we have a couple of consultants present with us tonight from King Consulting that are going to be helping with this process. They will jump into this presentation as needed to support me, and then they'll be actively involved in the discussion as we move forward. So I'll introduce them as they pop up. So this 7-11 committee addresses several district goals that we have called out. As a system, as the board has called out. The biggest and most important one is our short and long-term fiscal responsibility. At the end of the day, we cannot achieve any of our district goals if we are not considering the fiscal responsibility of the district. And in this case, we will be exploring both short and long-term fiscal responsibility. Another key component that can play into this discussion around the 7-11 committee is attracting and retaining high-quality teachers and staff. This could take many, many forms. It could take the form of the work that we are working towards on staff housing. It could take the form of us using this process to help us generate revenue streams, both short and long-term, for the district, which could impact our ability to attract and retain highly qualified teachers and staff. And then finally, every single school district in California's most important fiscal asset, I think you'd make the case that our most important asset is our students, followed closely by our staff. But our most important fiscal aspect is our property and our facilities. And so we need to make sure that we have long-term asset and property planning And so we achieved that goal in part through our work with the 7-Eleven committee. So the big question is, what will the 7-Eleven District Advisory Committee do? And this slide here calls out really what the role of the 7-Eleven committee does. I'm going to get to the portion about the makeup of the committee in a little bit, and the rationale behind why we selected the candidates that we did. But for now, I want to focus on exactly what the committee does. This committee is going to get a significant amount of data from our consultants. That data will span the gamut of starting with where our students live and where they attend schools. Looking at significant data. I'll have Rob come on the screen later, and he can talk with you a little bit about the specific data that he's going to be providing. The community is going to use all of that data, input from other community members, to make important decisions about how we use our facilities moving forward. They could potentially make a recommendation around school closure. They could potentially make recommendations that for how we use that facility after school closure. They could potentially make recommendations about the way we use our property, including the potential for recommending that we sell property. Once the committee makes a decision that the property is not needed for school purposes. This committee is an advisory committee. This committee does not have the authority to make decisions. They have the authority to make recommendations to the board that fall within their scope of responsibility. So we've gone through a fairly thorough process to date when it comes to the selection of the 7-Eleven Advisory Committee. We solicited applications from interested community members. Clearly, we got the word out because I'm pleased to announce that we had more than 50 applicants for this important committee. And I want to send out a special thanks to every community member who said, I know this committee won't be a lot of fun. I know this committee will force me to make difficult decisions for our community moving forward. But as a leader in this community, I'm willing to put my name in the hat. It was a gut-wrenching decision to narrow it down to 15 people. But that's what we had to do. We had to narrow it down to a list of, we could have picked 7 committee members. We opted to pick 11 community members. And then we've also picked 4 alternate members that we have brought to the Board of Trustees. I'm going to let Jennifer Gibb from King Consulting talk with us a little bit about the required makeup of our 7-Eleven committee as required by California Education Code. So the next 2 slides will touch on that. So Jennifer, take it away.
Thank you, Superintendent Koska and trustees and Novato Unified Community. As Chris stated, the committee is required to have a composition based on Education Code 17388 and 389. Yes. So I think you can read what's on the slide, but I think one of the most important parts to remember is that the committee composition is presented this way in the Ed Code so that it represents the entire Novato community, Novato Unified Community, that being all the taxpayers, not just the school community being teachers, staff, parents, or students. So the Ed Code's trying to be very general to provide a diverse community selection of community members to help represent this group to be able to bring forth a recommendation in the end to the board. So some of the composition opportunities are providing an ethnic, age group, and socioeconomic composition that reflects the district. And in doing so, based on the applications we received, you had a wide, diverse representation in those 3 categories. You want to also look and hope for selecting committee members that represent the business community. They could be a business owner, a manager, a supervisor. They don't have to, again, be part of the school community. They want to represent the boundaries of the district, so a business community member. Landowners can be a physical landowner or a renter. Pretty much anyone that lives in your boundaries is qualifies under that. Again, you had over 50 applicants, and you had multiple applicants that selected a few of these categories. So you have a really good range of representation on your committee. The next slide, Chris. You want to also include teachers, administrators, the classified staff, because understanding the perspective from a school site administrator or teacher or the staff that may or may not be impacted by the decisions being discussed at this. And you did have several applicants apply and that are pushed forth in the recommendation representing that category. Parents and guardians of students, you had over 7 recommended members for the committee, and then 3 of the alternates that are being recommended represent a parent or a guardian of your students. So you definitely have a diverse group there supporting that category. And then again, persons with some sort of expertise, either being real estate, legal, environmental impacts. As Chris has stated, there's a lot that's going to be discussed, and it's really important to have a subject matter expert on the committee or represent the committee that can dive deep into some of the data that we're going to have. Of course, our team, Rob, who you'll meet, will be able to provide the data very succinctly and at a level that the community will be able to understand. But it's always nice to have somebody on the committee that does represent a special group, such as what's listed on the slide. So one other thing I want to just make point to the board, and that staff really was cognizant about, is that the 11 members and the 4 alternates really speak to the segment of the community, or speak for the segment of the community that they represent. And it's pretty amazing when a committee that is diverse comes together to present a recommendation to the board. It's more meaningful. It provides a greater impact, taking diverse opinions, diverse members that represent your entire community, coming forth united with a recommendation for our community and for the future of Novato Unified.
All right, thank you, Jennifer, for that. With that, I'm going to move to the next slide, which is the list of the committee members as recommended by the staff and the different categories that they fill. So you see the list here before you. You can also track which category different folks fall into. I do need to make one clarification on this slide that I want to make sure we say loudly and clearly in the public here. The alternates have been put in a particular order. Right now, you see them alphabetically. They need to be numbered. And so right now on the record, I want to share what the numbers are for the alternates, because this determines that if somebody, for whatever reason, is unable to continue as a committee member, they need to be replaced, and we need to, in advance, have the order for which they're going to be replaced. So if you're one to take notes, now would be a good time to sharpen that pencil and be prepared to write down a note to yourself that alternate number 1 would be Ron Gerber. So Ron would be the first person to fill in with this recommendation should somebody need to exit the committee for any reason. Alternate 2 would be Srikala. She would step in the event that a second person needed to leave, or that Ron was unable to join, etc. The third alternate would be Nihad, and the fourth alternate would be Mariah Fisher. So that is the sequence of the the committee members. I'm sure we will be coming back to visit this slide in the future. I will keep moving forward with the presentation and be prepared to move back to that slide as we enter into discussions. So these are the dates and times for our committee. There is the possibility that these dates will need to adjust as we move through the pandemic and everything that's going on. We wanted to do our best to put them out to the community as far in advance as possible, knowing that there's always the opportunity that we're going to need to make some changes. And we've already had to make one change. There was a fairly significant conflict on April 14th. And so we have moved the meeting from April 14th to April 21st. From a structural perspective, from a meeting perspective, it actually is good because we're going to do a lot of work between the 21st and the 28th that are very connected. And it's probably better that we don't have 2 weeks in between to sort of lose track of some of the important conversations that we had. So we think this will serve the process and the committee well. Again, I just am always committed to informing the community when we make changes as soon as possible. And so tonight's the soonest that I could share that with you. Finally, the outcome of this 7-11 committee is expected to be a recommendation or multiple recommendations to the NUSD governing board. This will take place in a special board meeting that's scheduled on May 25th. This special board meeting was approved by the board tonight in earlier action and will be added to the district board meeting list that is published on our website. And with that, we will turn it over to questions, concerns, and public comment on this topic.
I was just making sure I had the meeting on my calendar so I didn't miss it. Sorry, it's a ad.
No problem.
So questions to the board members. So it looks Trustee Mack and Trustee Nell and then Trustee Butler, and then we'll go around the room. Sorry. Thank you, sir.
It's just actually a quick clarification question for Chris. Well, whoever might answer. In terms of the committee, the leadership of the committee, is it going to be just ad hoc and be facilitated by staff and the consultant, or will they actually have a chairman and maybe a vice chair or something like that?
Great question, Trustee Mack. In our first meeting, one of the very early agenda items after we get through the sort of compulsory things that happen at the beginning of a Brown Act related meeting will be to have the committee move through a process to approve a chair and a vice chair. Their roles after that will be to essentially play the same roles that we have with the board president and vice president at the meeting. So they will be responsible for the overall facilitation of the meeting and organization of the meeting, and then they will pass off to the appropriate party the roles and responsibilities to talk about the individual topics on the agenda. Hope that helps.
And then the alternates, are they, how are they, they're going to sit in on the meetings, I take it, but they won't have a vote. Is that the gist of it? But they'll have the equal access to questions and discussion and just like anybody else on the committee.
Correct. And so I'm going to touch on that, and then I'm going to touch on one more thing. Yes, the alternates will be present at every meeting. They will have a significant voice during the process of the meetings. And as you pointed out, as long as they're in the alternate status, they will not have a vote when it comes time to make a vote. One of the things I tell the folks that I work with the other district office administrators is don't do the and one more thing you just reminded me of, but I'm going to break that rule right now. This is going to be a very public process. These meetings will be publicized similar to our board meetings. They're governed by the Brown Act, so there will be minutes taken from these meetings. There will be opportunities for public comment on these meetings. It will be a very open, very transparent process. So just wanted to make sure that that was heard by our trustees and by our community.
Trustee Mack, you want to continue?
My last question, Chris, relates to exactly that, Brown Act. So obviously, Brown Act compliance applies to the 11. Am I safe to assume it also applies to the alternates as well? And before you answer that, I see you nodding, so I'll just take that as a yes. And if we could talk through with clarity what that means for these folks in terms of if there's, 15? Can they talk to as many as 6? I mean, can you go through that? Or is it really, use the number 11? Just clarify.
That's a great question. I don't necessarily know the answer to that question. I think that the number is 11. So here's when a committee is governed, when any organization is governed by the Brown Act, and there are board members or committee members who are responsible for making decisions, there are rules that govern how many other committee members somebody can talk to outside of the meetings to sort of check in with, because it's against the rule to be sort of cooking the books outside of the meeting and figuring out how people are going to vote, et cetera. And so I would assume, and we can get clarification from Janet Mueller, who's working with us as legal counsel on this topic, but that the maximum number of people you could be talking to would be 5. Because a quorum necessary to approve any recommendation would be 6. And so you could not talk to 6 or more. So I think the number would be 5, but we will confirm that with legal counsel.
Thank you. Trustee Nels next, then Butler, then Gaston.
I appreciate Trustee Mack's questions because they're along the similar lines. I was just looking to have a broader discussion and description about these meetings and how they're going to be conducted and what the rules would be. So I'll assume that there's no closed session associated with this group. Everything they're going to do is in the public, and the public is notified in advance and invited to attend and observe. And there's will be agendized comment periods, not only to unagendized items on this committee's agenda, but also a time to speak to each itemized agenda item.
Correct, and we would use the same policies that we use for the board to govern public comment on this committee. We'll be consistent with practice.
And then on what's at page 8, you've got the dates. I would be looking as things develop to have maybe a projection as to what the subject matter would be at each one of these meetings.
Posting an agenda.
And I'm not really sure. There's probably a good way to do it. And I know at this point it's too early to maybe assign the subject matter or what the goals for each particular meeting might be. But at a minimum, I would expect the preceding meeting to produce an agenda in advance as to what's upcoming for the next meeting. Is that something that we're going to be able to do?
Yeah, we are the same requirements as a committee that's governed by the Brown Act. We have the same sort of requirements that govern the board's meetings. So we have to post them in a timely manner so that the community has time to access the agendas in advance and review the information and have time to come up with thoughtful questions, comments, concerns for the committee.
And my last question would be, in addition to the ability to make public comment, we'll have a system to accept information as part of the record, so that if anyone has an article or statistics or other information that may not be coming forward as a result of the work that the district and the committee is doing, they have an opportunity to put things into the record.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Trustee Butler.
Yep. Let me first state this is a well-defined process. I mean, if it's not Ed Code, it's the Brown Act, and there's very specific parameters we have to stay in. So we shouldn't go too crazy and go off the deep end a little bit. We should be staying within parameters that are dealt. Mm-hmm. My question is for the consultant, for Jennifer. And Chris, you can answer it. Just curious if Jennifer was part of the selection process, the committee members selected. Was she sitting at the table and just checking the box to make sure the people that were selected qualified in the right areas, and that, just a thorough review of our committee outside of staff?
I'd love to have Jennifer and Rob, if he's interested, sort of chime in the role they played, and then I'll chime in on the role that I played and other district staff members played.
Of course, thank you, Chris. I assisted the district in the facilitation of the application process from the development of the application, and I don't know if any of the trustees or community have had the opportunity to look at our website that we've developed. Staff developed that to support this process. So you have a very thorough website that outlines all of the things that we discussed tonight, that the application was on, that the community engaged in, and access to participate in that process. So we developed that as a team, with me leading that, and then once we gathered all the applications and the period closed, I reviewed them and organized them into the categories to ensure that the district was able to satisfy the requirements of the Ed Code, and supported staff in reviewing each category and each applicant as they fell into those categories, and reviewed that with the staff throughout that process.
Okay, thank you. I think that's good to know, and for this community to know that it wasn't just staff sitting around the table guessing at what potentially this person could qualify for. So I think it's good that your expertise was part of that. Will there be a set of norms or commitments by the committee set up ahead of time of this is how we'll handle ourselves basically as individuals, and an agreement basically amongst the team?
We're still working on the specifics of the agenda. I always like the idea of building norms early on in the process. So that is certainly something to consider. Thank you for that suggestion.
Okay, that's it.
Trustee Butler, complete. Okay, Trustee Gasson.
So thank you for filling in some of the details on this for us. The one thing I noticed when we were discussing what the format was going to be that I'd like to just point out is that it would also be recording, is my understanding. So it's available. It will be available for others later. Somehow along, I've been listening so much, I don't know who it was that mentioned this, but social media, I think, might be an issue that we might need to address. I felt fortunate that among the 7 of us, and actually now Julie is on social media, I've been pretty much the only one that has been. I know there's some rules and guidelines related to us interacting on social media. So given this large group, and several of which I personally know is on social media, I would like to make sure that we somehow address that, just so that we're not in conflict and that there's an understanding. I know some new rules came out recently related to that. Yep. So like even liking something on something another person has said. So I think that we'll need to make sure that we take a look at that with this group. And touching on what Trustee Butler said, I would go a step further, I think, and I think it relates somewhat to social media, having rules of conduct before the group, just so that everyone's clear on what they can and can't do. I think that would be extremely helpful. So that's all.
Cool. Any other trustee comments? Otherwise, I'll go for Chris. Do I hear?
No, I just wanted to say briefly that in the first session, we're going to spend a good chunk of time with Janet Mueller, a legal counsel, who is going to be providing an update on the Brown Act to our members, and we'll make sure that she talks specifically about social media. And I agree with you, Diane, that for those who know a lot about Brown Act, if they haven't been current on it in the last 2 months, they don't understand the changes that have come in that have impacted social media communication. So we'll make sure that she highlights that. Thank you for that suggestion.
So, Marie, do you have any comments or?
Yeah, I just have a question about, so we have 4 alternates. Is there anyone that we missed, or like what would happen is, would there be like, is there an additional list of like a 5th alternate in case something happens with anybody decides to pull out, or with the alternates? Is that?
Yeah, so we talked about that. We have gone to the maximum number of members. So if we were to lose 4 members and we ended up at 11 with 0 alternates, we could still lose 4 of those members before we needed to add somebody. So I think that we definitely have ourselves covered. We know that these people are committed to this work. They've shared that. We've shared with them in advance all of the meeting dates and the times and the expectations, and so they knew what they were getting going in. So I believe that we're in pretty good shape as it pertains to membership.
Okay, thank you.
I don't have any comments on the process at this point.
Okay, I have a couple of comments. A couple of things, Chris. First off, Janet Mueller has served this district through similar processes for more than 2 going on 3 decades, and has been a very reliable resource through thick and thin. And I'm thrilled that you've chosen to bring her on board to provide the guidance in this program. That gives me the confidence of just absolutely solid professional advice. The second thing is, I want to make it clear, and I think you've already said this, but clear, this board is assigning no closed session topics to this committee. There is no reason, no legal reason that we'll ever meet in closed session, because that's only certain topics, and we've assigned none of those to this committee. Chris, is that your understanding?
That is 100% accurate.
Yep. Okay. So they will always meet in public. They will never have a reason to meet in advance or after. This is strictly an open session process. Everything will be Brown Act compliant.
And very transparent.
Okay. And so the last issue that is the clarity of the scope. I'm looking at the documents, and in times past, the scope of subcommittees that the board is assigned, sometimes they came back with something different than we intended because we weren't clear on the actual scope of their work. So Chris, I'm going to ask you to review the scope of this work, and depending on the conversation, perhaps bring back a clarifying definition of exactly what their bounds are, if it's or we can make it clear some other time. I didn't read it tonight, and it may be here, and that's my miss, but I would like to make sure that we know exactly what they're assigned to do, and that they come back with that work.
So I'm gonna say some bare basics from the direction of the board to me, and then I'm gonna turn it over to our consultants to address the specifics of that. Okay. What I want to bring us back to is what the board initially tasked me with, getting a recommendation from staff about elementary school closure. I brought back something to the board that was different than that. And what I said is, I want you to give us a little bit broader parameters that allow us to look at all of our underutilized or unutilized properties and facilities to make sure that we're using them in the most efficient way possible to achieve our district goals. And so with that, and I said, in order for us to do that, I want you to give us the authority to start a 7-Eleven committee. And so I'm going to let our consultants talk about really what the scope of possibility is from a 7-Eleven committee, acknowledging that we may or may not do all of those things. So we'll talk about the broadest scope here. So
when we finish this conversation, I'm sure we have some public comment, and we have some public comment.
Mm-hmm.
So we will take those after we hear from our consultants.
Great.
Thanks, Chris. I want to just introduce Rob. I don't believe the board has been able to meet him yet, but he's our Director of Demographics and Planning, and he is the data guru. He's going to be running all the data analysis for you, and he's going to talk about his process that we've discussed with Chris regarding the 7-Eleven committee.
Yeah, thank you, Jennifer, and thank you, Chris, and board, and all of the other guests who are with us tonight. So I'm just keeping this very high level right now, but I think in terms of the data that I'll be providing to the community, a good, quick way to summarize it is we'll look at where you've been, where you are, and where you're going. We're going to be looking at broader community demographics. We're going to be looking at your actual enrollment trends, both what's been happening in the past and what that appears to mean for your immediate future. and longer term future, and we're going to be looking at your school facilities and just putting all of that together in various ways to just help this committee, in whatever form it ultimately takes, just have informed decisions and informed opinions as they make their recommendation.
Questions from trustees?
Public comment.
If not, I will ask for public comment.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to go to public comment. I believe we have 3 speakers queued, and this, as every time else, 3-minute limit and 20 minutes overall, at which point we will do a checkpoint. But we all have read lots and lots of comment around this issue, and I think we understand that we've digested those items. And my hope is, we don't get the same comment 20 times. We get a useful information for us this evening to make a decision. Thank you. And we're waiting for the first speaker to come forward.
Well, I'm here. So,
good evening. You've got 3 minutes, sir.
All right, thank you. Board of Trustees and Superintendent Costa, thank you for the time. My name is Tom Engdahl, a 16-year resident of Novato and a homeowner. I'm a graduate of the Novato Leadership Program, where my project worked to successfully provide the milk machines to Novato elementary schools. I'm a Novato Proud honoree, active participant in Novato anti-bullying efforts. My wife and I had 1 daughter graduate from Samarin High School, and I actively campaigned and support school funding initiatives such as Measure A, MSA auctions, and school fuel. I'm here to speak this evening about item 14C on the agenda, the approval of the 7-Eleven Advisory Committee. I was approached Saturday by a group of parents, teachers, and residents concerned with Tina McMillan's appointment to the 7-Eleven Committee. I was asked to create a petition as a vehicle to provide community input and comment without fear of retaliation or repercussion. The petition went live on Saturday and closed today at 1 o'clock. Over those 3 days, 249 people logged in and signed the petition. 6 of those signatures were suspicious, and I did not count them in the final tally of 243 valid signatures. I sent the initial petition and the comments to the Novato Unified School District yesterday before 4 o'clock. 14 people who responded to the petition also included comments. I've selected 3 of these comments this evening. First one, I'm deeply disappointed to see Tina's name assigned to this committee. She's been very vocal with her anti-school funding misinformation, and she's absolutely should not have a seat on the committee making decisions that impact our children's welfare. Next comment. The person who spearheads a movement without funds to withhold funds from schools should not be on this committee. And the last one. This is not someone I want representing decisions that will affect my children. Tina has shown herself to not have the best interest of our youth. She will not be fair in her decision making. This is just 3 of the 14 comments that I sent to the school district yesterday. Creating and recruiting a committee to address issues that directly impact our children requires thoughtful care. This committee should include well thought out cross-section of community residents with open minds and relevant skills. People with preconceived agendas and a documented history of putting children's education second by openly fighting school funding is not the type of inclusivity that we need. I request that the board please consider listening to the many members of the community that have spoken up about this issue. At a very minimum, the board should move Tina McMillan to an alternate member of the committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments, sir. I appreciate it. Well, the next speaker, and we're keeping to a 3-minute time limit, and thank you, Tom, for honoring that.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Hello, Superintendent Koska and school board trustees. My name is Kim Staley, and I'm an active member of the parent community at NUSD. And I would like to voice my concern about Tina McMillan joining the 7-Eleven committee. During the Measure A parcel tax campaign, Ms. McMillan actively spread misinformation and bullied those with a different point of view. And as a result, I don't feel comfortable with her serving on this really important advisory committee for our schools. And the problem is not that she might have a different point of view. We actually really need that on the committee. The problem is in the way that she has acted, spreading lies and acting like an aggressive bully. And while I do not personally know Ms. McMillan, her actions have really spoken louder than any of her words. And personally, I didn't want to come here tonight to speak out against Ms. McMillan's nomination. I consider myself a really moderate person. I don't vocalize my opinions often here on Facebook. I'm not a big poster. I'm not vindictive. And I got to be honest, this is like super uncomfortable. And like many other people, I'm really scared that Ms. McMillan is going to bully and come after me, like I've seen her repeatedly do during the Measure A campaign. And I don't want to have a target on my back. And this retribution is something that I honestly fear. But I have really two thoughts about this. One is I've decided to live my life that is full of making decisions that are not based upon fear. And in this case, I would encourage you to do the same. Is the reason that she's on the committee is because we're afraid of her, as opposed to her offering a unique skill set or expertise? Do we fear that she's going to actively oppose the next parcel tax that our schools so desperately need if she's not asked to serve on this committee? And honestly, that's not an unfounded fear. She may do this. Which leads me to my second thought. Is this the kind of person you actually want representing the community as an advisor? A person who is a known bully and has not told the truth about our schools. You have 4 alternates to step in that are not polarizing, that are not distractions, and I hope that you'll add them to the committee in place of Ms. McMillan. And I hope that Ms. McMillan, if she's not on the committee, will work as an advocate and work with NUSD for our schools, just like everyone else who is not selected. And with this transparent process that you guys have described, she can easily stay engaged, informed, and active. As Tom said, there are over 240 people that signed this petition in 3 days. Do you know how hard it is to get that many people to sign a petition in that short amount of time? As somebody who is always, I feel like, asking people in our schools all the time to volunteer, I can honestly say that to get this many signatures is actually really, really hard. And I wish that we had this kind of in parent engagement at our school. The school community is speaking, and please listen. This is a huge red flag that I sincerely hope.
Thank you very much for your comments, Kim. I appreciate it. Do we have one more speaker? I hear nothing.
Hello.
Hi, can we reset his clock, please? Thank you, sir. Yes, go.
Thank you. My name is Robert Atkinson. I'd like to ask the trustee chair, was the board, they received my email that I had traded with Mr. Costa?
Yes, we did. Yeah, I received it. I don't remember actual reading the language, sir.
That's unfortunate. So I'm going to go through it real quick. I've looked at the purpose of the commission. It was stated tonight that based on community input regarding the use and disposition of school or property, the composition was supposed to represent the ethnic, age group, and social economic composition of the district. It doesn't. It doesn't reflect the gender ratio in this town. It doesn't reflect the age or the ethnicity of this town. If you look at it, it's weighed in one direction. Business owners. I'm the senior vice president of a local development company. Landowners or renters or representative neighborhood associations. I'm the former president of the Point Marin HOA. Worked with Pat Eklund there. I'm the current president of the Partridge Knolls too. And Ross, as you know, I'm the president of the HOA that you live in.
Yeah, we've been on meetings together, sir.
Yes, we have. So where I'm struggling with is I respect the work of the commission, the board, the trustees, but there is a complete disconnect between the stated composition and goals and selection process and the outcome. The study and use and disposition of property requires folks with real estate experience. My dear friend Sylvia is on the committee, but she sells homes, and I've talked to her about that. I've talked to Tina. You have no one with experience in feasibility studies, cost estimates, property acquisitions, dispositions. I've been reached out to by other members who were not given an opportunity to be involved, and they share a similar frustration. Like you, I'm extremely busy, but I would like to offer my services. I would like to bring my skill set to the primary focus of this commission, and that is to determine if schools should be closed and how the property and the real estate should be utilized. You have IT people, you have child psychologists, you have scientists, you have parents, you have teachers on the committee. Please explain to me where they have the relevant experience to help you make empirical real estate recommendations and decisions, and to use Rob's information and his data and his metrics to try and present recommendation and conclusions. There are people in this community, like myself, who would love to help the schools. We love our community. We're very engaged in the scouting, sporting activities. We want to help. We're fresh faces.
We're at the end of your 3 minutes, sir. Thank you.
I just want to say one thing. I would ask that you postpone the decision of the committee.
We're at the end of 3 minutes. I'm sorry. So everyone else is limited to 3 minutes. It has to be the same for everybody. So Robert, I look forward to talking to you at some other time. Walking the dogs. Okay, Chris. So Chris, I think, is that the end of our public comment? Yes, that is the end of our public comment. We're back to the board. So Chris, would you like to have the floor? And then
Elizabeth raised her hand.
Yeah.
Elizabeth, do I see your hand in the air?
I wanted to say goodbye before I left. Thank you guys so much.
Good night, Elizabeth. Good night, Eva. I think we missed Eva, but good night, and thank you for being here. Take care.
Good night.
So, you know, I appreciate the last comment. We have a difference of opinion about what the committee makeup should be. The committee makeup that we have is very much aligned with the California Education Code. The information that they will receive through our consultants will help them through those difficult conversations and through our staff, including our assistant superintendent of business and operations. I feel like we're in very good shape in those regards. And I appreciate everything he says, and I totally appreciate his passion for wanting to be on this committee. And, you know, as I shared before, we had to make some very difficult choices about who we recommended. And I want to continue to reiterate that what staff has presented the board with is a recommendation based on the best information we had available to us and our knowledge of the community and perspectives. And we also acknowledge that the board is made up of 7 people actively engaged in this community and I think have very many commonalities in thinking and have some differences in thinking. And now's a great time for us to discuss those.
Just to be clear about the way the meetings are, the 7-11 committees are being worked. They are open meetings. They're Brown Act. That means anybody can attend. Everybody gets to listen. If the day comes, we're actually holding them in a room, which is probably not going to be the case, given the time frame. We're probably going to be doing it on Zoom for the life of the committee. There's everyone has a chance to speak to the issues, and everybody has a chance to be in the room and hear all the words. And the minutes are going to be published, and the sessions will be not only Zoomed, they'll be recorded and available. Is that true? Are we going to video record or record the sessions? Is that a true statement?
Yes, absolutely.
That's a true statement. Okay. So there's opportunity for people to bring their good ideas to the table, even if they're not sitting as one of the 11 members who finally will vote on the value of those opinions. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, I think we're back to the board members on what we want to do. So I'm going to go around the room and whoever will all have a chance to talk to this issue. Anybody interested in, Mr. President? Yeah, Trustee Nell.
I'd like to make a motion that we remove prospective member number 10, Tina McMillan, and replace her with the first alternate.
Remove her and
From the
place her as an alternate, or
from the-
remove her
Remove her
entirely?
from the committee and replace her, and then based on suggestions from staff, if we have another alternate to, or if we even need a fourth alternate based on an earlier explanation, it may not even be necessary, but I'm
Okay,
open to an amendment to my motion if staff feels they would like to have.
So your motion is to remove her and move the alternates up with only 3 alternates left.
That's correct.
Okay. Do I have a second for that? I don't hear a
I
second.
think Julie was going to say something.
Julie.
Well, I was going to say that I think it would be useful to add Tina as the alternate. It gives us room if we need alternates, and it also allows room for that voice. I do think it's important that we let all people speak, but I've firsthand been impacted by the way she twists the truth. And so there's a place maybe where these things all come together and we sort of hit all topics and respect all points of view. Just an idea.
Okay. So I didn't hear a second for Trustee Nell's motion. So we can either continue conversation or.
Well, I'm open to discussion, but at this point, if the reason I'm proposing this motion is that I think it's incumbent upon us in our fiduciary responsibility to put the focus on the students and the success of our school district and our community, that we get off on a good start and that we have a quality list of members who have not proven to be either not competent or deliberately derisive in the community.
Given there isn't a second for the motion.
I don't see a place on this committee for this individual, which is why I'm asking for further discussion.
So before I accept the motion, and I probably would like, my preferred process is we adopt the resolution and then make amendments to the resolution like we did with the way we changed the language. But at this point, I think we just need to have some open conversation because you guys need to decide where you want to go. So who's up? Who wants to talk next? Marie.
So
Trustee.
I am fine with how it is now. I think everybody is different, and I think and again, the past is the past, and everybody has. I'm fine with the way it is. So.
Okay. So let's hear from everybody before I entertain any motion.
Sure.
Butler. Sure.
Staff has made a recommendation. They have thoroughly vetted these people. I totally understand where this community is coming from. I lived and breathed and ate the parcel tax and understand what this one individual, one community member and the information that was spewed out by the opposition, and she's part of that opposition. I totally understand that. But we do need to move forward. I have moved forward. I'm fine with the idea of moving her down to an alternate. I will take that for sure. That was in my brain as well. You're thinking as trustees, we're trying to weigh all the options. So we've heard of the public. I've heard the public. I've heard also both sides of the community, not public, but our community, both sides for and against. And that's our job, to weigh these options and to figure out what the best solution is to move forward. So, and I have done that. So we may not always agree, but I have looked at both sides. But I am open to moving her down. I think removing her completely, I'm not there yet. So moving her down to an alternate, the first alternate up would be I would be fine with that. The board is.
Other Trustee Gasson?
Sure.
I mean, here we are. We're in the.
There you go. I'll go for you.
Yeah.
Or if you want me to go.
You can go.
Okay. All right. Trying to hang that. That's okay. I understand. Regardless of what we do, timing's tight. We can't delay. And while I appreciate Bob's concerns, I understand where he's coming from, but I also really have faith and trust in district staff as well as the consultants. They did their job, and I want to abide by that. That said, I do think Bob's skills might be useful after this, when we have a strategy to execute.
Right.
So anyway, I want to put that out there. Another thing before I really kind of talk about my thoughts about this, from an execution perspective, I'm a little concerned about Measure G projects that may be hitting our primary campuses this summer. I don't want that potential contract signatures to influence how this committee thinks. So I would ask staff to please do whatever we can to hold off on any of that so that doesn't impact where this committee goes. I don't know where we are on that, but I just want to bring it up. I think it's important.
I think we got signed contracts and.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But if we can, let's, and maybe those delays are going to cause problems. And that just further speaks to the need to get this done tonight.
Hey, David, for some reason, I haven't slept for 3 days. I didn't process that. So what are you?
Well, so I know we have some projects going this summer to improve elementary campuses.
Oh, okay. So that's the. Okay,
and I don't want that to influence the decision. I want the decision to be made for the right thing strategically for the district. So.
You hadn't said elementary school campuses, and I thought you just meant all projects. I took it more of a global.
No, just elementary, because that's what this conversation is going to be.
Right.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you.
Much as I talked about the high schools at one time, that's not real. Anyway.
Why not? You're objective.
But anyway, to the topic at hand, to what Trustee Butler said, so many letters. I mean, and thank you everybody for sending these letters. It shows passion in this community. It shows this blood and sweat that everybody has put into Measure A. And it's not lost on me. There's some controversy here. And I can't disagree with the overwhelming sentiment of these letters. The irony is that the very same folks, plural, who fought so hard against Measure A, I won't get into saying the tactics, but we all know what they were, are now trying really hard to join this. Now, that's ironic, but at the same time, I get it. I think that there could be some use in having that voice and incorporating it into our discussions. It also could be educational for this group so they can understand that a lot of the misconceptions that they not only held, but also spewed, I'm using the word spewed because that's what it was, can be corrected. So I do think there's a lot of value in involvement, but I do like the idea that Trustee Nell put out there of let's make it informational and involve Ms. McMillan as an alternate. So that's where I'm in. I just think that makes the most sense. And also, the last point I'll make, to go to Kim's point, we do need truly unique voices on this committee. Let's face it, this is one. So I do think we need to have a voice on it, but I'm not ready to go. I'm still singing. I'm going to be completely honest. Measure A, I'm still singing for it. So, anyway. So I'm not as easy to forgive as Maria is. And Maria's a better person.
Can I just clarify something?
Sure.
You said Trustee Nell, and then you said you're okay as an alternate. Trustee Nell wants to remove that committee.
Oh, I was assuming he was going there. I'm sorry.
That's good.
No, I am not. My motion is unamended.
I just want to.
Okay, I apologize.
But
So you're in agreement with Julie and Trustee Jacobson and myself.
So do we have other discussions amongst this? Trustee Gasson.
This is a hard one for me. It's really personal. I can't hear me. This is personal. I knew almost every single person that emailed and spoke. I have something that I wrote, and I hope you'll indulge me just because it's been hard. So
Sure. I want to
I
hear from you.
personally understand much of what has been said about Ms. McMillan. I'm a mom who has put in many volunteer hours for our students. I have supported NUSD and our schools before I had kids. I have not only co-chaired a prior parcel tax, I invested a lot of time and emotion in the most recent campaign. And I have been personally confronted by Ms. McMillan as an individual and trustee. Through it all, I still recognize the right of others to see things differently and understand they may not share my same opinions. I can acknowledge the hurt when you work so hard for something you believe in, for it to be diminished or marred because you think others are misrepresenting what you said, or you can't understand how they can disagree. But we live in a democracy, and an individual's right to speak and have a difference of opinion is inherent and should be embraced. The wrong thing to do at this juncture is to decide someone is to be excluded because of the opinions they represent. You then fall short in meeting the statutory requirements for truly seeking input and representation from the community you serve. So I would fall in line with the rest, and if we decide to make a change, that it would be to have her be an alternate, but not to remove her from the committee.
So I'm gonna look for a motion that adopts the committee with Tina as an alternate, and then see if we have second and discussion around that. Does somebody think I'm going in the wrong
Derek, do you want to do
direction?
that? Or do you want to stay?
Well, I have not been seconded. I am
Yeah, his
not,
motion didn't get a second, so that's why we're having this.
I'm not interested in amending it either.
Yeah, so,
It's okay.
I mean,
So we're discussing it.
it sounds like there may be two possible motions. One as superintendent's recommendation as is, or a recommendation with Ms. McMillan moved into the alternate role and the first alternate moved. Those are the two I hear discussed. So Trustee Jacobson, would you like to?
I'd like to move that we adopt all of this with the caveat of moving Tina to the bottom of the alternate list.
And the first alternate up to
Yes.
the first, okay.
And so before we move forward with that recommendation, I want to check in with our consultants. I've done a quick analysis. I think that this keeps us compliant with the requirements of Ed Code, but I want to check in with our consultants to make sure that they agree with that, because I would hate for this decision.
Voice coming out of the ceiling here.
Yeah. So Jennifer, Rob, whoever's the right person.
Thank you, Chris. I was feverishly looking through the opportunities as you all were discussing. And if you decide to, the board moves forward with the committee as Ms. McMillan as an alternate or as not participating, either way, you still meet the compliance that the Ed Code does require.
What's on the table is Ms. McMillan moves down to the fourth alternate position, and the first alternate moves to be the last member. That's the item we didn't get a second. We have a motion, so be specific about that alternative. We have a second now, so we have a motion and a second. So that is what's before us. So are we okay in terms of compliance?
Yes, you are still in compliance.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Madam Trustee Aguilar.
Thank you. So I have a question. Is there a third choice? Because by us voting, I mean, can we do it individually, Superintendent, or because it just feels like if I vote against this, because I do want her in the committee, then and if I vote against it, then I'm voting against Allison and Alexandra and everybody else on the list. So is there another way that we can vote so it doesn't, maybe we can do it individually or?
No, Maria, I would suggest, I really appreciate that.
So after this,
because you want to make sure that you're honoring all the other members. And I think that it's pretty clear that if someone votes no on this idea, on this motion, they're not voting no against the 10 people on the committee or any of the 15. They're saying, I just don't like this idea of this change. And I think the community understands that. And I don't think that any of the members should take that, excuse me, should take that personally. So
Okay.
I think the right thing to do is to vote on the motion and vote your heart and vote your mind. And we respect that people have different opinions on this stuff. And it doesn't make you good or bad. It just means that we're honored to have differing opinions on our board.
And that can be specified in the minutes if you'd like.
Mhm.
That's where the end result is.
Yeah.
That can be noted in the reasoning.
Okay. So is there any more conversation we need to have? I'm trying to get us to the point where we.
Yeah.
Okay. So with that, I will call the question, and what's before us is adopt the 7-Eleven committee with all the members with one change, and that is Ms. McMillan moves to the last alternate position, number 4, I believe, and the first alternate moves to the last member, and that's the list we're adopting. That's what's on the table. So all in favor?
Well, I have a comment, but I just for clarity, I missed the second of that motion.
That was me.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So
thank you.
Comment.
Yeah.
So I'm going to vote against this proposal, but I do really want to recognize the magnanimous statements by Trustee Gasson, who, in my opinion, was a victim of some of this severe threatening and bullying that went on. I really do wish that you will all consider that sometimes the spirit of compromise is definitely the right thing to do. And I do, like you, want a committee that is broad-based and giving opinions from all kinds of ways, but there just has to be a line, in my opinion. So for me, I don't see this individual's contribution to our community as being positive in any way. In fact, it's quite negative. So I just wanted you guys to know I'm standing firm on principle as far as I'm concerned, and I don't want to see this kind of behavior propagated in our community any longer. I really think it's sick to be online, socially insulting, and trying to tear down other individuals, especially when you don't have the facts and knowledge and experience of what you're talking about. And then actually continuing a conversation by leading others who have even less knowledge and information on the subject to be believing in things that are not true and not true about other individuals. So I really respect all of you very much, and I understand your goal here. And I look forward to the progress of the real progress of this committee. But for me, on principle, there has to be a line, and this individual does not deserve a position on this particular committee.
So is
That is
there
my
any other
opinion.
comments that we want to make? We've heard from Trustee Aguilar. Any other comments before we vote? With that, I will call the vote.
So what's the motion? So what's the motion then?
The motion again, I'll repeat, listen.
I am listening, but he just changed it.
No, he didn't change it. The motion on the table is we approve the list as proposed with the exception that Trustee or candidate McMillan becomes the 4th alternate and the 1st alternate becomes the last member. That's what's on the table. Is anybody unclear about what's on the table? Okay, so all in favor of the motion as on the table? Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4 members in favor. 5, pardon me, I can't count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh yeah, I didn't. It's one of those things. 5 in favor and opposed. We have Trustee Aguilar and we have Trustee Nell voting negative. And with the make sure we record the actual vote because it's not clear. It's a 5-2 what was going on. And I think with that, that's the last order of business. Trustee Koska, do you have any other business we have in front of us?
No other business in front of us. I just thank everybody for their time, and I continue to be thankful for our community who gives us good input on these decisions. They're strong in their opinions. Those opinions are appreciated, even if at the end they aren't the ones that are supported. We learn and grow from them. And so thank you to everybody who's given us their thoughts on this important topic.
And the important work is still ahead. The committee is just the first step.
Yep.
The hard work is still before all of us. So thank you with that. With that, the meeting is adjourned for this evening.